and Warchant TV. Great to be with you. If you have the day off, good for you. Enjoy the day. I wanted to get back on the air and respond to the weekend that was. So you get a show. Now, albeit it's recorded in the morning, but it's still a show, and it's all fresh, and it's a reaction since we've last seen you, which was last week, and certainly to the weekend that included an awful lot. But I want to start with really where my focus was and what I was excited about most this weekend, and that was the return of Florida State baseball. And obviously, it could not have gone any better than it did. The Noles win in a sweep over James Madison. You know, it should be pointed out, I mean, Florida State is a much better team than James Madison. If you're just going to take a surface level look at this, we talk about prospects. It's one way of doing it. You just watch the games themselves is another way of doing it. It's obvious that Florida State's more talented. They have a better depth of talent. They're certainly much better defensively. James Madison spent the weekend making one blunder after the next defensively. I thought it cost that team terribly. They would have lost the series to Florida State either way. The Noles did so much so well, especially on the mound. So I'm not trying to suggest it could have been different. But what I am saying is that James Madison will, I assume, get a lot better because they are well coached. That's a team that went to a regional, won a couple games. This is a regional team from a season ago. So it's not as if James Madison's a bum. But they played like a team that was a little overwhelmed by the moment, and they really struggled to make routine plays, which gave Florida State's offense the extra outs it needed. To the Noles' credit, they took advantage of those opportunities time and again. Every time it seemed like James Madison made an error and Florida State had an opportunity to stay alive in an inning, 2-out error, something along those lines, get a runner on base when they shouldn't have had one. They came up big. Whether that be a single, whether that's a stolen base followed by a double or a single, something along those lines to cash in a run. Florida State did those things. It's the stuff you like to see from a team that obviously it's Omaha or bust. It's not as if they come into this season with any other expectation but to make it to Omaha. We know that. As for Florida State, that is the third straight series sweep over James Madison, whom we've played a lot over these last 4 or 5 years, and it wasn't much of a matchup, as I mentioned. It concludes with yesterday's game, a 10-0 ass-beating, a run rule game. Still blows my mind that we have run rules in men's baseball. I know that they have in softball for a long time. Speaking of which, how about that? Florida State rallying over Wichita State, then going nuts in the latter innings, and eventually run ruling that team as well with a walk-off bomb. So it was fun to see. If we're talking about bat-to-ball sports, it was a good weekend for Florida State between the baseball and softball teams. Back to the start of the season, I just want to say, as somebody who's been fortunate enough to be here in Tallahassee since 1991, and as somebody who sat in the bleachers and did homework at Hauser, who later sat in better seats, more situated behind home plate, and never missed a game through much of the 90s with friends and, old buddies and girlfriends and everything else that I think about over the years. Many of you who I still know to this day that I met at Dick Hauser Stadium, now Mike Martin Field as well. And I remember the additions to the stadium. I remember those magical nights, the comebacks, the devastating losses, the regionals, the supers, all the things, the trips to Omaha, and the yearning for the magical and elusive national championship. I take all of those memories, I take all those experiences in the build up to opening day, in the lead up to the drive over to Dick Hauser Stadium. And on Friday, I did that. On Friday, after having taken a couple of days off for my anniversary week with my wife, I couldn't wait to get over to Hauser and once again kick off the start of baseball. I was in a great mood, if you will, and I always am when baseball is returning, and it was a lovely couple of days with my beautiful wife, followed by a baseball weekend at Hauser. You really can't beat it. And so I'm driving over, and I'm trying to get there on time, and I get a late start, and I'm hoping that I don't miss the first pitch of the season. I've got to pick up my press pass from will call, got to do all of those things, and I'm getting parked, and I'm doing all of that. And the cool air hits you. It's a beautiful day, beautiful early evening. And it's a 5 o'clock start, and I'm walking in. I'm looking at the football stadium. I'm looking at the construction. I'm looking at things about what I expect, what I'm nervous about for football, and what I'm nervous about for Florida State. But I push that to the back, and I tell myself, you really don't need to be worried about any of that because it's the start of baseball season. And you can't help but sense that this is a program that is right on track, is moving in the direction of capturing that aforementioned elusive national championship. That the Noles are close, man. That Link Jarrett and the methodology, the way he coaches, the focus and attention to detail, the buy-in, it's early in his time here, but given that he was such a great player here himself, and given that he grew up here and always wanted this job and had success elsewhere and came home, and then last year, Florida State bouncing back from that miserable first season where obviously it was a program in transition, and Florida State getting this past season back to Omaha and back to where we feel like as a fan base they rightfully belong. Getting out to Omaha and not just playing well, but giving yourself an opportunity to maybe win a national championship. Feeling like you were a check swing call or a couple of plays away from maybe winning the national championship. Knowing that quickly this thing got turned around and that they were that close. There's a joy. There's an energy. It's palpable as you walk into that stadium now. And what a crowd, right? I know opening day is supposed to be well attended. I know opening day is supposed to be a time where people celebrate the return of something they love, in particular, the passion that this fan base, this great fan base that Florida State baseball has, that they would show up in droves, especially on the heels of what was a devastating football season and what is a basketball season lost in Leonard Hamilton's final year. More on that in a moment. But this seemed to have a little extra something, a little something more to it, which I confirmed the next morning when I was at Garnet and Gold off of Pensacola, and I was picking up some new Florida State baseball gear. I called Tara and her crew over there, and they do such a great job. And I wanted to gear up. We have a wonderful partnership with them. And I thought, I need to get a couple shirts, and I had it's a new season. You got to do the right thing. And so, and one of them is this classic. So I did just that. And I ran into some people who had been at the game the night before, the game of which I speak, the opener. And one gentleman said to me, man, didn't it just feel different over there? Didn't it just feel like, gosh, there's a little, and I said, it did. Maybe it's that this team was so good a year ago. And maybe it's that you perhaps have, potentially, the number one pick in the draft taking the bump for the opening night's game. Jamie Arnold has electric stuff, plays the game with an enthusiasm that is infectious, is a young man that is easy to root for. All the time, all the while with a smile on his face, trying to perfect his craft and get even better as he adds a pitch to the repertoire. A guy that I think Florida State fans like to watch pitch, not just because he wins, not just because he's good, but because he loves pitching for Florida State. And he loves the pursuit of perfection. It's awesome to watch. It's an easy thing to go and do, but the next day, same thing. Joey Vellini's debut. Sunday, packed house, inclement weather in the morning, not sure the games are going to happen. Then all of a sudden, you get it again. And another dominant performance from Florida State. So I walked up into the press box and sat down next to my good friend, Eric Llewellyn, play-by-play announcer. And I reminded him, and covered a lot of opening days. We've been in that ballpark many, many times, separate or together, for opening days. And there's something magical about an opening day. That's true of Major League Baseball as well. But being in that park on Friday night and watching that team and watching Jamie Arnold do what he did. 6 scoreless, 8 Ks. You know, at one point, I was talking with Lulu, and he pointed out on his scorecard that we were moving into the 5th inning, and Arnold hadn't even thrown 30 pitches yet. Efficient, dominant, beautiful thing to watch. John Abraham with the 9-out save there. And, you know, day 2, you get a little bit of that offense, a taste of, because that's the question mark coming into the season is, will Florida State have the requisite offense to dominate like they did a year ago, where if pitching has a tough day at the office, do you have the bats to win a 9-7, an 11-9 type baseball game? They had so much of offensive firepower a year ago. These weren't guys that just got on base. These were guys that hit the ball out of the yard with great frequency. So you wondered about it. Well, you get 4 home runs in that next game, and you feel pretty good about the offense. Gage Harrelson's a young man who had a good weekend, a player that comes over from Texas Tech that you're I'm wondering what he's going to be, but, man, he was really good. Max Williams is going to be a great player and was a good player already a year ago, showed prolific power, is a guy that still has that prolific power. He hits a home run in this game. And, the thing about him is that's a kid that has so much confidence that, from time to time, you can see where he will not be well-liked. He is not a young man that opposing fans and teams are going to enjoy play the game, because he'll let you know about that confidence, and he'll let you know about that power. And having to watch a young man that can really play and has the confidence to do it, and the bravado, the machismo, the arrogance in some cases, to make sure you're aware of his presence. Watch for some fireworks at some point this year. This Florida State team, on the heels of last year's Florida State team that was demonstrative upon every offensive success, is again like that. And no matter that was not who Link Jarrett was as a player, it is what happens in the modern game of college baseball. We watch it all over the country. It's the one saving grace, because I would ordinarily be somewhat critical, even though I know it makes me sound like an old man screaming at the clouds, to talk about just put your head down and run the bases. Man, you're really good. You're going to hit a lot of those. Are we going to have to watch a show every time? Young people say, please. I hope we do. Old fogies like myself would say, until you get a pitch at your neck the next time up. But I don't know that that's the way that it is anymore, and I do at times like the Flash. Anyhow, he goes yard, and he will. You saw Lodis, who I think is going to have a big year, also go yard. Farrow hit his second dong of the season in this game. And, man, I thought Joey Vellini was very, very good. Let's get back to the pitching there, because Joey Vellini is a guy, that's a horse. That's a big man, and was pitching very, very well. The irony is that Farrow had such a great weekend, and yet it was Farrow that cost Vellini the win. 4 2/3 in. They go out to the mound to visit. Vellini's on a pitch count. Obviously, he's reaching that number, maybe even close to exceeding that number that they want for the first outing of his Florida State career. He induces a ground ball to second base. It's booted by Adam Farrow, and it's the next thing you know, Adam Farrow. I'm speaking of his dad. It's booted by Farrow, and that's how you know I'm old. Watch his dad play here. It's happening, guys. So then they have to go get him. He doesn't qualify for the win, but he was good. He was really, really good, and Florida State got that win. And then yesterday, obviously, was just nothing short of a bludgeoning. Again, more bad defense from James Madison, but really good to see Florida State take advantage of those opportunities. Literally cool to watch a lot of these kids get their opportunities. By the way, Florida State's pitching staff, it wasn't just the starters. I'll get to Wes Mendez in a second. He was very, very good as well. But the bullpen was excellent. And if you look at the overall effort, Florida State's pitching staff, 2 runs in 3 games. Only one of those runs was earned. So this was a dominant performance from Florida State, and really fun to watch the bullpen arms as well. I think Florida State one of the things I'll point out is they have so many options. So many different guys that can get you out from either side. It's not so left-hand dominant. They've got a lot that they can work with on both sides with both arms. So expect this pitching staff to give Florida State an opportunity to win games day in and day out, even when the offense isn't clicking. I don't think they're going to give up runs in bunches or anything like that. On to the aforementioned Wes Mendez, 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 8 Ks, 1 walk, no runs given up on 70 pitches, 2 shutouts over the weekend for Florida State. It was as good as you could hope for. You ended up with beautiful weather for the most part. You ended up with great results. You ended up with resounding victories. And you ended up with a reminder of how much you love Florida State baseball, why you go to that ballpark, how fun it is to be amongst these fans, this group, game in and game out. They're going to have a good time. They're going to have a good time at Hauser this year. We're going to have a good time at Hauser this year. It's Florida State baseball and a reminder of what could be. It's also why you hope some of that magic, some of that returned, renewed energy, that focus, that all of the things that we associate with success in Florida State baseball, some of that rubs off on this football team. I've got some football to talk about and some basketball to talk about. One of the potential head coaches, certainly a candidate, was in town over the weekend to watch Florida State get housed by Clemson in a game that was never close from tip. It was a bitterly disappointing result on the heels of the huge comeback on the road against Wake Forest, which was no doubt very damaging to Wake Forest hopes of a postseason run. And being in the field, the ACC having a tough go of it, that was a great moment and a great night for Florida State basketball. But certainly you thought, well, for anything to happen, you've got to now come back home and defend the TLC Double C and hope to get a win against a Clemson team that has been simply outstanding this year on the heels of their win over Duke. And it was pretty apparent right from the jump that Florida State didn't have it and reverted back to a team that really just can't shoot the ball with any degree of consistency. This was a particularly awful night. Clemson, meanwhile, played hard, played focused, and cared. But that wasn't where my mind went. Where my mind went was directly associated with the man who was in town and who was spotted in the box with Michael Alford. And again, that is a candidate, one of many. I'll talk about that next. It's Jeff Cameron Show. Good to be with you on this Monday. 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
This is Jay of Paul's Termite and Pest Control. There are many companies out there selling pest treatment programs at prices which seem too good to be true. Like most things, you get what you pay for. Let's separate the fact from the fiction. Fiction. The price these companies offer includes all visits needed to keep a home pest-free. Fact. Their prices only include regular visits for exterior treatments. If you encounter pests inside your home, these companies will charge you for additional visits. Is that really pest prevention? At Paul's Termite and Pest Control, we always apply exterior treatments, but our plan includes a significant difference. Whenever you encounter an interior problem, Paul's technicians are there, usually the same day you call, and there is no extra charge. With ProShield, you'll never pay extra for providing the service we promised. Pest prevention for your home, and we'll be there as many times as needed to honor our commitment with no extra charge. Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a local company that proudly served the Tallahassee area for over 50 years.
For the elimination of termites and any other pests,
call Paul's. We'll get them all.
And we make lawns greener, too.
At Epps Decorating Center, we're your locally owned Benjamin Moore retailer. We're your store for quality with brilliant and durable paints in a variety of sheens and thousands of colors. We're your store for service with one-on-one advice for contractors and homeowners. We're your local experts, and we're here to help with all your painting projects. Benjamin Moore, available at Epps Decorating Center with 2 locations in Tallahassee. Find a store near you and visit EppsDecorating.com. That's EppsDecorating.com.
Join Boys Town by providing direct care for youth in a safe and caring family-style living environment. As a family teacher, receive a $20,000 hiring bonus. Boys Town family teachers are a married couple that have the unique job of caring for children that are not their own by teaching, guiding, and preparing girls and boys for success in life. This is a live-in position. Join us in helping youth reach their full potential as a family teaching couple at Boys Town. Apply at boystown.org/careers.
This is Thomas Dickens from the Law Office of Marie Maddox. I'm a combat veteran and a former JAG. I've fought for our country, and now I fight to get you your back wages. If your boss has ever shorted your paycheck or withheld your overtime, You need to call me now. 850-383-4800. 850-383-4800. Or find us online at MaddoxLaw.com. Offices in Tallahassee.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus, happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Mentioned a moment ago about Florida State basketball, which got absolutely boat raced at home. A place, the TLC that I have referred to many times as not a place that you can just stroll on into and expect to win a basketball game. Oh, but alas, stroll on in and win a basketball game is exactly what Clemson did in a game that was never competitive and very sloppy. It marks one of many disappointing results this season. We all know the situation at hand. Leonard Hamilton announcing that he will retire at season's end. And while I appreciate the fact that if you see these games on television and judging by the crowd at the TLC, that's where most people, if they're watching it all, are taking these games in. If you watch these games on television, you know the crowds are sparse. There is no real clicking or spark or what for or anything to do surrounding this basketball team. It feels like it is stagnant, to say the least. That'll happen when you haven't produced anything magical in 4 years. It'll happen when the results are a team at the season's end that not only doesn't make the NCAA tournament, but doesn't go to the NIT, is just not really relevant. And not being relevant will sap the soul of a fan base. You can live with up and down seasons at a place that is not historically great at basketball. You can live with a couple of good, followed by a couple of bad, followed by a good and a bad. There's got to be some ebb and flow to the good and the bad, not just the bad, the bad, the bad, the bad, and the bad. And over time, people will choose to do something else. People will suggest that they have no interest in investing emotionally or financially in a program that is not going to give something back. And that's something in the way of sports is always about wins and losses. That's the way it works. And my son sat behind the bench at this game with his friends, and I noted frequently seeing him on television with that faraway gaze in his face that everybody else in attendance had. But I think we're less concerned about that right now. We're less concerned about the losses that mount or the ugly games that we've witnessed because we know change is coming, and that change was afoot on Saturday. Luke Laux was in town. He was spotted in a box with Michael Alford. Luke Laux, we know, was mentioned as a candidate, along with several other coaches, which includes former Florida State great Sam Cassell. And there are some people that have great interest in this job that believe there is a way to get it back and have it focused. I know, I will say, and I've mentioned this before, I've known Luke since he was a player and have a relationship, really more of a press player relationship. But I know him well enough to be able to ask questions and talk to him. And I know for a fact, having asked him specifically whether or not he was interested in the job, this was before his appearance was seen there over the weekend, was able to make that appearance as an assistant coach with the Sacramento Kings because of the All-Star break. So I thought if he was going to be interviewing for the job and if he had interest in the job, which he had stated to me that he absolutely did, that he would be in town this weekend, and he was. One of the things that I've had conversations with you guys about, and we've had them with Seminole Headlines, we've all talked about it. We've known the direction of this situation. Look, you're going to have somebody who not only knows the X's and O's and knows them well and can communicate, teach, recruit, instill, do whatever it is that they're trying to implement and get that done. That part of it, the acumen for the game, most of your candidates are going to have. You're going to have somebody who has a great NIL plan. It's absolutely crucial to whatever future success you're going to have. It's interesting when talking to a guy like Luke, he will point out that evaluation, finding value-added players at a place like Florida State is absolutely important as well, and that there are programs all over the country who do not spend max dollar for their roster. They don't have what some of these other programs have. They don't have the money that maybe a Duke is investing or a Kentucky is investing or many of the other blue bloods are investing. So you have to find these value-added guys, which means you have to know what you're looking at. And the other important part of this, and I think it'll be very fascinating, and I think this is the thing that people will really welcome. You got to have a vision of how you want to play. How are you going to play? What style of basketball are you going to play? What is it you want to do if you were named head coach? And as much as anything else, sure, you got to have some money. You got to have NIL available. As much as you got to do those things, you got to be able to sell a vision of what you're trying to do. Hey, this is how we want to play. This is how it showcases your skills. This is how I'm going to get the most out of you. This is why you fit in what I'm trying to do here. And you know what? I get it. Maybe you have an offer to make a little bit more money elsewhere. And at the end of the day, if it's a lot more money elsewhere, then you're probably going to go. But if it's close, here's why I want you to consider Florida State. This is how we play, and this is how you fit. I've talked to a couple of coaches about this, and that seems to be the sense of trying to sell a vision of how you're going to play. And if you look, Golden has done that at UF. You see that. Arizona, he did it. Historically, Gonzaga has a way that they play that people buy into. It is associated with what they do. Now, again, in the sport of basketball, a singular great player can make the biggest difference as to whether or not you win games or have any success at all. I'm not so naive as to think, well, here's my vision. Here's how you fit in it. You could make $200,000 more elsewhere, but won't you just take a flying leap of faith and trust me, and we're going to go out and win a bunch of games? I mean, I get it. No, you got to be competitive, which is why the NIL part of this is going to be very, very important. Look, at the end of the day, as we watch the transition of college athletics, and we can say what we want about it, it's an ugly and interesting and transitional time. At the end of the day, the sports that are going to be left standing when it comes to how the money is doled out, and this is why it's worrisome for non-revenue sports. It's why it's worrisome for soccer and tennis and swimming and volleyball, all of these things. There's a time we're going to look back 10 years from now and say, man, they really screwed this up. The golden age of college athletics with some tweaks really were the 80s and 90s. And had they just done this, this, and this, and they were warned about it, we could have avoided all of this, but we didn't. And here we are now. And you know as well as I do that Florida State football and basketball and baseball, and I will say women's basketball too, need to be successful. That's where the money is going to be doled out, and it starts first and foremost at the very top with football. The large majority, the vast majority of this money will be allocated for football, and the rest will have to survive on the success of that. But basketball is a part of that talking point. Basketball has to be good. It does not make the money that football does, but it does make money, and it needs to be part of the overall package of programs, of sports in your athletic department that make very real dollars. And you cannot do that by being what Florida State is right now, which is, unfortunately, sadly, as a very, very good man, great man's career ends here, feels rudderless. So let's hope in the coming days and weeks we get some answers on that front. I've had a hard time, and it's left a bad taste in my mouth, that collectively it feels like Florida State fans have had to say, okay, I get it. We're in limbo as it pertains to football. And because we're in limbo in football, we really can't afford to invest in the ways that we should in the other money-making sports. It feels like to me, we all recognize I've been beating the drum for some time, but they're having to make do, and it's going to work out because this guy came in with a very real plan and has been able to overcome some of the problems of which I'm going to mention. But Hauser, come on. There are so many more stadiums with greater amenities and better bones. I love Hauser. I have a nostalgic connection to Hauser, but I also understand the great need for that place to be seriously upgraded, perhaps demolished and built again to a much greater degree with all of the modern amenities we see from baseball stadiums throughout the SEC and even within some in the ACC. But I understand also that that's not going to happen right now. But basketball has been left to, I guess, be adrift. If I'm going to stick with the boat analogy and talk about being rudderless, there doesn't seem to be any infusion of life into that program. There doesn't seem to be any concern because I don't know that there can be while you're trying to make sure the football stadium and the many fans you've pissed off and alumni and boosters that feel slighted by the changes happening at Florida State right now remain at least in some way tethered to their university while pushing back anger and frustration. Basketball has kind of been left over here, and the programs that have had success and have been humming for some time and or have very resourceful coaches, see Trey Jones of the golf program, who do all the heavy lifting when it comes to funding their own programs and not having to ask for a dime from the university, knowing damn well that college golf isn't going to get it no matter how successful they are. Or Lonnie and what she's done with the softball program. Or what started with Krikorian is now carried on into a second regime with the soccer program. And all of these things that you understand that if they don't do it, if they don't have the coach funds, they don't have the groups that support their program in the way that's necessary, then it's not going to get done. That you're just going to be what this basketball program is, which is lacking, which is not good enough, which is frustrating. So this weekend was a bit of a reminder for all the good and all the great that we saw with the baseball team, which I absolutely loved. How distant the chasm between that and basketball is, how far apart that is. And it hasn't felt good to say that basketball is sort of just an afterthought because it can't be. It simply can't be. And it's also, dare I say, and again, this is a set of unique circumstances. I'm not casting aspersions upon people's personalities or who they are. I'm just saying that Florida State finds themselves in the kind of predicament that is troubling because they have to focus all their energies in this one place. Meanwhile, other things are falling by the wayside that should never be an afterthought at a big boy program. You fancy yourself a big boy athletic department with big boy goals. You want to eat from the same money trough and have the successes and all of those things that everybody else is striving for. And it's not a good look to have one of the moneymakers, one of the big three in your athletic department be sort of no consequence. That's really what I guess I mean to say. It's of no consequence, that basketball program. If I had come in here today and only spoke about the baseball program and immediately went into whatever points I'm going to make about the football program, which in a few minutes I will. If I had just done that, I think there might have been a small percentage of people who said, man, he's not even going to touch on that basketball team. He's not even going to bother to mention the fact that they took an ass kicking over the weekend. He doesn't seem to care at all. Oh, but I do. Many of you would have been fine with it, though. Many of you would have just been like, well, that's cool. Like, whatever. You know, it is what it is a phrase too often used and is very frustrating to hear. And I do feel like you could use it with basketball. You could just say, like if we're all sitting around a table having a conversation and we say, oh, you saw the basketball team got housed at one point, was down by 30 and wasn't competitive at home to Clemson. And it was scarcity would have been the word as it relates to the fans in the stands. What do you make of that, Larry? Well, Kip, I'll tell you, it is what it is. We're saying it is what it is about basketball? That can't be. So I like Luke Laux. I'm fine with Luke Laux getting the job, but more than saying that, I'm fine with it. It feels like, and I know that this is ordinarily not true, and I've said this. I'm also great with Sam Cassell getting the job. I do feel like this is one of the few times that I've hoped for a Florida State connection to get the job, just because this is a weird place and how it operates, and you have to do more with less, and all of those things seems to matter. You don't have to do it, and you can win if you don't do it, without question. You can. I just think it would help if there was a little bit of somebody's heart in this too. That the connection was real and they understood what they were walking into, and they were undeterred by that rather monumental challenge at a place like Florida State at a time like this, because their heart was connected to this place and because they had a background understanding of what it's going to take for any of this to work at all. So that was the other part of this weekend. That one was left you euphoric, and the other, and euphoric and hopeful. The other one left you destitute and hopeless. Chef Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
This is Jay of Paul Termite and Pest Control. There are many companies out there selling pest treatment programs at prices which seem too good to be true. Like most things, you get what you pay for. Let's separate the fact from the fiction. Fiction. The price these companies offer includes all visits needed to keep a home pest-free. Fact. Their prices only include regular visits for exterior treatments. If you encounter pests inside your home, these companies will charge you for additional visits. Is that really pest prevention? At Paul's Termite and Pest Control, we always apply exterior treatments, but our plan includes a significant difference. Whenever you encounter an interior problem, Paul's technicians are there, usually the same day you call, and there is no extra charge. With ProShield, you'll never pay extra for providing the service we promised. Pest prevention for your home, and we'll be there as many times as needed to honor our commitment with no extra charge. Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a local company that proudly served the Tallahassee area for over 50 years.
For the elimination of termites and any other pests,
call Paul's. We'll get them all.
And we make lawns greener too.
At Epps Decorating Center, we're your locally owned Benjamin Moore retailer. We're your store for quality with brilliant and durable paints in a variety of sheens and thousands of colors. We're your store for service with one-on-one advice for contractors and homeowners. We're your local experts, and we're here to help with all your painting projects. Benjamin Moore, available at Epps Decorating Center with 2 locations in Tallahassee. Find a store near you and visit EppsDecorating.com. That's EppsDecorating.com.
Join Boys Town by providing direct care for youth in a safe and caring family-style living environment. As a family teacher, receive a $20,000 hiring bonus. Boys Town family teachers are a married couple that have the unique job of caring for children that are not their own by teaching, guiding, and preparing girls and boys for success in life. This is a live-in position. Join us in helping youth reach their full potential as a family teaching couple at Boys Town. Apply at boystown.org/careers.
This is Thomas Dickens from the Law Office of Marie Maddox. I'm a combat veteran and a former JAG. I've fought for our country, and now I fight to get you your back wages. If your boss has ever shorted your paycheck or withheld your overtime, you need to call me now. 850-383-4800. 850-383-4800. Or find us online at maddoxlaw.com.
Offices in Tallahassee. There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
hour of the Jeff Cameron Show on this holiday. Hope you're well. Hope you are driving about town, listening on 93.3 FM if you are. Enjoy the day off if you got it. If not, if you're working like me, hey, good on you. And, by the way, if you're watching on Warchant TV, we always appreciate that as well. Special thanks to Director Matthew. Stepping to the plate when I needed him most today and coming through and helping out with the show today. So I want to give my love and doff of the cap to Director Matthew. One of the other things that happened that we haven't had a chance to talk about was, and we wondered about it. Now on headlines, we talked about it a little bit, but our own Matt Lacerda was over there in Orlando when the coaches went and to talk to the boosters, and really he brought all the coaches, not Matt Lacerda, but Mike Norvell did over there to Orlando, and we think that's a good idea. Now, you've probably seen the article on warchant.com. I wanted to look at some of those quotes, though, from the new offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn. Gus Malzahn, as you well know, has been a head coach for the past 13 years. And I wondered at the time that his name began to get whispered whether or not, like a lot of guys, especially if you're a little bit older, and he's not old by any means. I think Gus is, 59, about to be 60. But, you start looking at coaches in their early to mid-70s as your older coaches and on the way out, almost by definition at that point. But late 50s, early 60s, not as much. Anyhow, the point would be this, though. A lot of guys, I do think, are, as we've documented, really kind of just excited to leave the head coaching role to somebody younger, more energetic, and more capable of digesting the nonsense and the hoops that you have to jump through in order to run a program right now. And you just saw it with Chip Kelly being a prime example. Chip Kelly having all the success that he did. He leaves UCLA. He's a head coach. Having been on that campus, knowing the way that UCLA treats its coaches, where they allow them to live in that area of Los Angeles and how much money you can make, that's not a job that you would really run from. It's not a job where you can consistently be great either. But the point is, he was making gobs of money as a head football coach at a Power 4 and in a beautiful location, and said, no, I'm good. I tell you what, I'm going to walk away from this, and I'm going to be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Now, this was calculated and smart in a lot of ways, because going to Ohio State, he was not going to be lacking in any way, shape, or form. He was going to be able to call plays for kids that can run them exceedingly well. He was going to call plays for kids that run extraordinarily fast. He was going to call plays for kids that will be doing these same things or same type things in the National Football League, and doing them very soon. So if I got to go be an OC, let's go be an OC to a kid who might end up being, when he's all said and done, the number one receiver taken in the draft when he decides to come out. Let's go call plays for a couple of running backs that are most assuredly going to be drafted and drafted high when their time is up on playing college football. And let's go do that with an offensive line that is going to feature many NFL football players. But really why they do it is to take less responsibility and get back to what they love, which is what I want to do, is teach the game and call plays. Let me focus on a game plan. Let me implement said game plan during the week with my unit. Let me talk to these guys about how to execute and win football. In his case, offensive football, and in our case, offensive football. So when Gus Malzahn walked away from UCF, now some again will point out that it may very well have been that the writing was on the wall for Gus at UCF. But Gus leaves a head coaching position, and he becomes the offensive coordinator at Florida State. And certainly he does so in part because Mike Norvell and he have a working relationship. They know each other very well. I'm sure it was an easy phone call to take. I'm sure it was an easy conversation to have for both parties, especially given the similarities of their backgrounds and their offense and their relationships. Gus Malzahn said this while he was in Orlando. Really excited to kind of get back in my element. I'm an offensive guy, and all I worry is about offense now. Well, that's a way of just saying, look, I don't have to worry about head coaching duties. I don't have to glad hand, kiss baby, shake hands, tour, do what I'm doing here tonight. I don't have to do any of those things presumably moving forward, so long as this offense succeeds, and that's what I'm tasked with, and that's what I'm prepared to do. I run an offense. I just have to run the offense. And I'm paid really well to do so, and never mind the fact that I've made an awful lot of money. So I'm going to be all right just focusing on the offense. Goes on to say that he was pretty excited as far as that goes. Yeah, he's pretty excited to walk away from the responsibilities of being a head coach. But then he got into the goals. And I think a lot of us have asked the questions about what is a reasonable set of goals for this Florida State team coming off a 2-10 year. When you're 2-10, what is reasonable to expect? Now, this question has become very complicated. It's become much more complicated than it used to be. It's become something of a bit of a mystery, right? I think fair-minded, rational fans would tell you, like, all right, I'm already noticing things are different in the modern era of college football, the modern world of unlimited free agency in the form of unlimited transfers and, pay for play and all of that, and people rating your roster. And so I know that the old way of doing things, where you build things up, then you sustain it for a long period of time, and that the end takes a slow dip, and surely you can see it coming. Now that's all gone. Right now, precipitous. You will watch teams fall off cliffs, jump back up, fall off cliffs, jump back up. You will see that kind of inconsistent play, especially as people figure out the best ways to operate and navigate the new norm. The new norm. They're not new familiars yet. They're the new norm, right? That's where we're at. So I wondered what he would expect, what he thinks is reasonable, because this is not a guy that doesn't understand that whatever he says in Orlando is going to be printed, is going to be read, and it's going to be talked about on shows like, I don't know, the Jeff Cameron Show, that has thousands upon thousands upon thousands of diehard Florida State listeners, that is associated with the Warchant Network, that is a guy that's been talking about this program, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything in between, getting some right, some wrong, and some very wrong, and some very right for 27 years. You're damn right I'm going to talk about this, and he knows that. He knows that the point is, it's not just me, and I don't mean it to be an ego boost. I'm talking about the reverberations of what you say. He gets it. He knows it. So he says this about the goals. And a lot of times the old adage being, you want to under-promise and over-deliver. And Mike Norvell understood that early on when he got here, right? Gus Malzahn not having it. Talked about he wants it to be, and what he expects to accomplish in 2025, to have the best offense in college football this year. To have the best offense in college football. Says that basically, without that mindset, you never really have a shot to achieve it. And goes on to say, well, our goal is the number one offense. I said that 2 months ago. I've said that 3 times already, and you've got to believe that. We've done that twice. He means by we, I. I have done that twice, meaning I'm speaking as if I'm Gus Malzahn. I have done that twice. Only twice, he says, but I have done it. It's impressive to have done it more than once. It's impressive to have done it ever at all. A lot of teams play college football. We've been in the top 20 12 years. 12 years we've been in the top 20 in terms of calling plays and running offense. But how about we shoot for number one? We're going to shoot for number one. And I'll tell you, man, lots of ways to look at that. I love that he has these kinds of lofty goals. I'm here for it. Go get it, Gus. All right. But, man, that means expectations are very ratcheted up. And one of the things that you're going to have happen for any of this to work, for these goals to even be coming, and I don't think most of us care whether or not he has the number one offense in the country. It'd be cool. I'd love to have the number one offense in the country, because if you do, by the way, have the number one offense in the country, you're going to win a bunch of games in this league. You may not beat Alabama. You may not beat Clemson on the road. Who knows if you'll beat Florida at the end of the year, or Miami on the. You got a lot of things. There's a lot of juggling parts there, and a lot of good teams, and teams that presumably are in a little bit better position than you are from a personnel standpoint. But I will say, if you have the number one offense in the country, you're winning, 8 games? And if you're winning 8 games, you're pretty much back. You're on the cusp of competing for the conference title. You're on the cusp of going to the college football playoff. And that's really what we're talking about here right now, right? Is getting back to something like that. So if by chance that goal, which he stated is their goal, if that goal is achieved, Florida State's good. And I would tell you that if that goal is achieved, 8-4 is kind of lowballing what's possible. He said a bunch of other things, which I'll get into later. We're running out of time this hour. But that includes kind of how they plan to achieve that goal, the way they implement this. And this is why the ratcheting up and the enthusiasm and excitement for coming up, what's going to happen in spring, is going to be very, very real. Because I think it's going to be a pretty physical spring. I think it's going to be an interesting spring, not from the standpoint of, how quickly can they implement this and how soon can they get back to where they were. I mean, these are big picture conversations I get, but the day-to-day stuff will be interesting because you've got a new defensive coordinator who no doubt has similar views of what he thinks ought to happen for this football team and how close they should be to being a dominant defense again. Does he believe he has the personnel? I've not heard the same weighty goals, lofty expectations just yet, but I will tell you that both guys are talking about playing a very physical brand of football. Both guys are talking about trying to achieve lofty goals, and that involves the run game on offense, first and foremost, over and over again. That is mentioned, the run game on offense. And it's also on defense about flying to the football, swarming to the football, being one of the most physical teams in football on defense, establishing that as the way this team operates, because it travels and it changes your mindset and the way you think, and it makes you tough. It's who you are. And to achieve it, you cannot step foot in the arena of spring and slowly build. You're going to have to create the mindset early and often. They're going to strike a match. It's going to be fun, and I think it's going to be loud. And you're going to have 2 coaches squaring off, wanting to better their situations. One in particular who wants to be a head coach, and another who wants perhaps his final coaching chapter to be an elite one. Hour number 2 is forthcoming. Jeff Cameron, Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, and Warchant TV.
This is Jay of Paul's Termite and Pest Control. There are many companies out there selling pest treatment programs at prices which seem too good to be true. Like most things, you get what you pay for. Let's separate the fact from the fiction. Fiction. The price these companies offer includes all visits needed to keep a home pest-free. Fact. Their prices only include regular visits for exterior treatments. If you encounter pests inside your home, these companies will charge you for additional visits. Is that really pest prevention? At Paul's Termite and Pest Control, we always apply exterior treatments, but our plan includes a significant difference. Whenever you encounter an interior problem, Paul's technicians are there, usually the same day you call, and there is no extra charge. With ProShield, you'll never pay extra for providing the service we promised. Pest prevention for your home, and we'll be there as many times as needed to honor our commitment with no extra charge. Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a local company that proudly served the Tallahassee area for over 50 years.
For the elimination of termites and any other pests,
call Paul's. We'll get them all.
And we make lawns greener too.
At Epps Decorating Center, we're your locally owned Benjamin Moore retailer. We're your store for quality with brilliant and durable paints in a variety of sheens and thousands of colors. We're your store for service with one-on-one advice for contractors and homeowners. We're your local experts, and we're here to help with all your painting projects. Benjamin Moore, available at Epps Decorating Center with 2 locations in Tallahassee. Find a store near you and visit EppsDecorating.com. That's EppsDecorating.com.
Join Boys Town by providing direct care for youth in a safe and caring family-style living environment. As a family teacher, receive a $20,000 hiring bonus. Boys Town family teachers are a married couple that have the unique job of caring for children that are not their own by teaching, guiding, and preparing girls and boys for success in life. This is a live-in position. Join us in helping youth reach their full potential as a family teaching couple at Boys Town. Apply at boystown.org/careers.
This is Thomas Dickens from the law office of Marie Maddox. I'm a combat veteran and a former JAG. I've fought for our country, and now I fight to get you your back wages. If your boss has ever shorted your paycheck or withheld your overtime, you need to call me now. 850-383-4800. 850-383-4800. Or find us online at maddoxlaw.com. Offices in Tallahassee.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus, happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Dude, Jeff Cameron, Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Good to be with you. Thanks for being here with me. By the way, obviously, many of you have the day off. I hope you're enjoying it. But if you're watching this, I pre-recorded it today. But it is fresh content, and I wanted to make sure I was on, as I said last hour, in reaction to the weekend that was, which was really busy and a lot of fun. And I think it's worth pointing out, the way this weekend played out, you had a lot going on, and in a way you could learn an awful lot. Like today, don't you think that NBA executives are thinking long and hard about how to fix their All-Star game problem? And I really don't know what you do for that situation. All-Star games, like, first of all, think of it this way. I'm gonna put these all in one group and then kind of flesh this out a little bit. But you had one league figure out that, okay, this isn't working. And that league was the NHL. So the NHL, which not a lot of you watch, but when I tell you these numbers, I think you're going to realize that maybe more people are watching than we realize, or would. If you could get it off of cable and put it on network television like they did over the weekend, in particular, you add a little, you add a little flavor, get a little nastiness to the occasion. People will tune in. But let's think about this. The NFL has made a mockery now of the All-Pro game, the Pro Bowl. It doesn't really exist. It's not kind of a thing. I mean, we're quite literally out here playing the equivalent of two-hand touch. And I get it. In a sport like the National Football League, it never really made a lot of sense to me that you would go play at the end of a season another game and have it be where I'm a middle linebacker and I'm taking on a lead blocker and I've got to make a tackle against an all-world running back. I've just played 17 games. This game doesn't count. I'm going to puff out my chest because the NFC beat the AFC in a game that doesn't matter at all. It really only matters in the NFL that you would have made the team if there were a game. You're one of the best at your position and you make the team, because that's all incentive laden. That's a contractual thing. That's where a lot of money can be made. And so, you kind of understand how that works. Just announce the guys that would have played the game. You don't actually have to play the game. And those numbers continue to decline. Somebody told me last week or a couple weeks ago when I was talking about the Pro Bowl, they said, well, Jeff, you may think that there's no need to play the game. However, it gets this many millions of viewers. So they're going to keep doing something because people tune in. I would go back and push back on that and say, yes, that is accurate. If you want to cite numbers, there are numbers that suggest it still does better ratings than the vast majority of any number of other sports' regular season games. That's how king the NFL is. That's how dominant it is as a ratings boon. Every time they lace them up in any capacity, people will tune in to watch football. We know that. We know the records. We cite them all the time. However, those numbers are now declining year over year over year as the game itself is becoming a greater mockery every year, to the point where players don't, they opt out and you end up with, Russell Wilson made a Pro Bowl this year. Russell Wilson, come on. Russell effing Wilson. So, guys don't want to play. They don't play. They opt out, all those things. So I don't know what the NFL can do. I think the skills competition is the best thing you can do, because I think there's always going to be some sort of interest in watching the best in the world perform individual things within a game that we know make up the collective whole and make us all marvel at their level of athleticism. So if you get guys to perform as a quarterback throwing through rings 40 yards down the field or at moving targets or whatever, that's interesting. It's relatively low risk. I think guys will do it. I think if I don't have to really run full speed as a receiver and you want me to, make catches off a jugs gun or something crazy like that, all right, well, whatever. Maybe I would do that. You could have kickers do pretty crazy things. Punters do crazy things, almost like you're trying to hit a wedge in, stuff like that, I guess. But football doesn't lend itself to playing another full game with the risk of injury and ruining your career at a Pro Bowl. Just seems silly. So what always made sense to me was I thought, and as a kid, I really enjoyed the NBA All-Star Game. First of all, I love the dunk contest. I used to watch the dunk contest. I couldn't wait for it to marvel at what these guys do. Even that's gotten a little stale. But the All-Star Game, while always a game in which very little defense was played, you did get a sense back in the day that, the East and West cared about who won. They kind of wanted to win the game. The Eastern All-Stars wanted to win that game. And in the fourth quarter of a game, you began to see guys guard. You saw guys care a little bit. So we would get the traditional, 155 to 151 games. But that fourth quarter featured some defense, and that fourth quarter featured guys going for it. So it was of interest to see the best in the world compete because they cared. Because, and the operative word is, they competed. They bothered to try. It was worth your time because there was some integrity to the proceedings. Once that was lost, once guys stopped caring about winning that exhibition game, the incentive was gone. They were always going to be kind of screwed. And that's where they're at now. And now, if you don't know what they did, I'm bringing all of this up again because one league solved their problem. And I think many of you know where I'm going with this. But if you're an NBA executive and there is no interest in the All-Star Game to speak of, you have to ask yourself, well, what do we do? Well, what they did over the weekend was it was 4 teams of 8. I know none of you watched, so I'm going to fill you in. It was 4 teams of 8. You had Team Shaq, Team Kenny, Team Candace, Team Chuck. It ultimately came down to Chuck's team versus Shaq's team. Shaq's team won it. It was a game to 40. Steph Curry won MVP, and they've officially jumped the shark. Okay, there's my dogs. Onward we move. Yes, a rare broadcast for the day from home in which this happens, but there you go. Anyhow, that's how that played out. Tyler Hero won the 3-point contest. Mac McClung won the slam dunk contest. Quick side note on Mac McClung winning the slam dunk contest. It's the 3rd straight year that he has won it. And my son pointed out that it would be pretty funny because nobody knows who Mac McClung is. So fast forward a few years from now when Mac McClung is no more. This isn't even a real NBA player. And all of a sudden you go over to Mac McClung's house. Somehow you know him and you go into his house and as he put it, imagine going into some random 6'1" white dude's house and looking over and seeing 3 NBA slam dunk championship trophies. You wouldn't buy it. You'd be like, what? What is this? Anyhow, he won. And, I don't think anybody watched this game. So with all that was going on yesterday, you had a little bit of the golf. Congratulations to Tallahassee's own Ludwig Abor winning, birding 4 of the last 6 holes at Torrey Pines to win Tigers tournament. Good for him. I'll have more on that in a second because it's funny. I'll tell you why. You had the All-Star game with the NBA. You had the 50-year anniversary of Saturday Night Live, which a lot of people watch. You had that. You had the Daytona 500, which I'm going to gripe about in the next segment. Because I have questions and I don't, and you guys can email me and please explain it to me because I think they're doing something terribly wrong. And I think it's probably something I'm guessing. I don't know this, but again, I'll get into it next segment. I got to believe that NASCAR fans, and there are some of you out there who listen to the show, are going to say, well, Jeff, that's because of this, this, and this. And, oh, by the way, this happened because of this. I want those emails. Please explain to me why the sport kind of makes a mess of itself. And I'll lay out the questions next segment. But then you had an overall winner, which is what happened on Saturday night, which was nothing short of freaking awesome. If you tuned in to the Four Nations face-off and you watched the United States versus Canada Saturday night, you were one of 4.4 million viewers. That is by far and away the highest rated hockey game of any kind, and this year for sure. And it is also not nothing. I mean, just in ratings in general, to have 4.4 million viewers on a Saturday night is doing some things. There was a sense that this was going to get testy. That it was going to be, there's a lot, I don't know if you know this, there's a lot going on politically right now. And so some of that has obviously seeped into the sports themselves. So when these two nations squared off, we figured we might get some action, that this would be taken seriously. And see, that's the thing. That's the whole thing. Fans will tune in to watch an exhibition game. And this Four Nations face-off is just an exhibition. This is what supplanted the NHL All-Star game. They decided All-Star games, as I'm talking about, aren't working. Pro Bowl doesn't work. People aren't watching. They don't really care. NBA All-Star Weekend has become a joke to the point where players have said as much. That's not a good look. Certainly, if you're the commissioner of the NBA, you don't need your players coming out when asked about all-star proceedings and telling the world what they already know, but you don't need the confirmation from players telling fans, yeah, I wouldn't watch either. Not a good idea, but that's what happened over the weekend. So, again, they're stuck. It's an exhibition game. It doesn't matter who wins, and people realize it. It's not a real competition, so you might watch the dunk contest, and you might watch the three-point contest, probably not watching much of anything else unless you are just a hoops head diehard. But the NHL decided, no, you know what? I got an idea. Let's pit the countries. Let's take our superstar players, of which many are Canadian, many are American, many are Swedish, Russian, and Finnish, and let's have them compete. Let's do it up. Let's get a little classic jingoism, if you will, right? Let's get some pride of country involved in all of this and have them compete. All right, so it happened. United States and Canada Saturday night faced off, 4.4 million viewers, and in the first 9 seconds, there were 3 fights. I mean, the puck dropped, the gloves dropped, let's get it on. Immediately. Thing of beauty. The United States wins that game. There were 80 hits in the game between the United States and Canada. So you had all the fights and 80 hits. By way of comparison, the Sweden and Finland game had fewer than 10. They viewed it as not much more than an exhibition game, an all-star game, sort of what the NHL was not trying to go for. And that's why the much more interesting matchup turned out to be USA and Canada, because these two sides really cared and really played hard and really hit one another. And if you didn't think that was going to be the case, you knew within 9 seconds you were wrong, because it was on. Now, supplanting the All-Star game was something that matters, and then having another element added to it led to a raging success. What will happen is what's happening right now. As you're watching this, there is a game being played, Canada versus Finland, going on right now. The winner has to win in regulation in order to face the United States on Thursday in the finals. If it goes to overtime, Sweden would get to play the United States on Thursday, and if they beat the United States, then they get to play them again. It's a weird sort of deal. But the bottom line is the United States and Canada could square off again. And I think the NHL would be very, very happy about that situation. I think we probably all would. You probably want to root for it. The only problem is you may have won the battle, but you could lose the war, right? You could end up, if Canada does what they're supposed to do, in a rematch and with much greater stakes at hand than the first meeting. So we shall see. There is a scenario by which the United States could intentionally kind of lay down and then make it so that you don't have to, like if they laid down against Sweden, there's a scenario by which you wouldn't have to play Canada. But I don't think you want to embrace that mentality anyhow. You go ahead and take care of business and try to win every match you play. The winner of the weekend, I would have never guessed it going into with all the options that you had: golf, hockey, NBA All-Star. Obviously, locally, I just got done spending a lot of time on Florida State baseball. The winner of the weekend turned out to be the NHL. I don't know that I've ever said that, but they got it right. They fixed their All-Star situation. Might the NBA take notice? They certainly have international All-Stars, to say the least. Could you have some sort of four nations? Could you have a Europe versus the United States type thing? It would be, I think, riveting. We know that a lot of the league's best players are foreign-born now. You could put together one hell of a matchup, and I think people might watch. You got the prime example. You just saw it the same weekend. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
This is Jay of Paul's Termite and Pest Control. There are many companies out there selling pest treatment programs at prices which seem too good to be true. Like most things, you get what you pay for. Let's separate the fact from the fiction. Fiction. The price these companies offer includes all visits needed to keep a home pest-free. Fact. Their prices only include regular visits for exterior treatments. If you encounter pests inside your home, these companies will charge you for additional visits. Is that really pest prevention? At Paul's Termite and Pest Control, we always apply exterior treatments, but our plan includes a significant difference. Whenever you encounter an interior problem, Paul's technicians are there, usually the same day you call, and there is no extra charge. With ProShield, you'll never pay extra for providing the service we promised. Pest prevention for your home, and we'll be there as many times as needed to honor our commitment with no extra charge. Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a local company that proudly served the Tallahassee area for over 50 years.
For the elimination of termites and any other pests,
Call Paul's. We'll get them all.
and we make lawns greener too.
At Epps Decorating Center, we're your locally owned Benjamin Moore retailer. We're your store for quality with brilliant and durable paints in a variety of sheens and thousands of colors. We're your store for service with one-on-one advice for contractors and homeowners. We're your local experts, and we're here to help with all your painting projects. Benjamin Moore, available at Epps Decorating Center with 2 locations in Tallahassee. Find a store near you and visit EppsDecorating.com. That's EppsDecorating.com.
Join Boys Town by providing direct care for youth in a safe and caring family-style living environment. As a family teacher, receive a $20,000 hiring bonus. Boys Town family teachers are a married couple that have the unique job of caring for children that are not their own by teaching, guiding, and preparing girls and boys for success in life. This is a live-in position. Join us in helping youth reach their full potential as a family teaching couple at Boys Town. Apply at boystown.org/careers.
This is Thomas Dickens from the Law Office of Marie Maddox. I'm a combat veteran and a former JAG. I've fought for our country, and now I fight to get you your back wages. If your boss has ever shorted your paycheck or withheld your overtime, you need to call me now. 850-383-4800. 850-383-4800. Or find us online at maddoxlaw.com.
Offices in Tallahassee. There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
I do this every year at this time. And if you have listened to this show over the years, you've probably caught a segment or two in which you heard me say, I guess you just have to go. And I think that's probably true. If you go back to the old 1270 days when I was working there on the AM dial, we would get a lot of, because it was Clear Channel, we'd get a lot of promotional opportunities, meaning that there would be these big buys across the entirety of Clear Channel's properties. And NASCAR did a very good job of sending people to the various towns and cities across the United States, promoting their events with Clear Channel. And there was a time when I was on the air where NASCAR had risen to a place where it would behoove me to talk about it, where I would maybe be doing myself a disservice if I did not engage my audience with some sort of NASCAR discussion. Generally speaking, not always, I try not to get into long form discussions about things that I have no knowledge about. It's a good rule of thumb for people. I frequently cringe and recoil when I hear somebody attempting to speak on a subject they know nothing about. And it's evident in the way that they're talking about it that they know nothing about of which they speak. I don't want to be that guy. So I always come out the gates by saying, whenever we have a NASCAR discussion, it is truly a layman's NASCAR discussion. Like, I don't know anything about how the sport, the inner workings of the sport. I know that it's racing. I know that they're in cars. I know the big races. I know that that Bristol's a big deal. I know that Darlington's a big deal. I know that Talladega is a big deal. And I know, some of those things, right? And I know the difference between the road races and then these just big open tracks. And I get that. So there is some just cursory surface level knowledge of what goes on in NASCAR, but not a lot. And I know that Daytona, branded by NASCAR, is the Super Bowl. That is their Super Bowl of racing. I always think to myself, A, it's kind of the timing is weird, but B, if that's their Super Bowl, it seems to me that that would be the race that you've got the most viewers for, that is important, that it's an opportunity, a marketing opportunity extraordinaire. And so it's because of that I frequently say, all right, and I have friends in the sports world who are sports nuts, who are people like you who listen to sports talk radio. And presumably a lot of us as fans of sport, I'm a fan of sports talk radio. I obviously this has been my profession for the entirety of my adult life, basically. And I get it. Some guys have expertise in other things and all that. I am more passionate about this than that host is about that or whatever. But we all kind of gravitate towards this idea of enjoying sports. And under that umbrella, I'm always for more sports mattering than not. I'd prefer, especially for a guy who has to talk for a living, in this case, doing 3 hours of monologue today. You want more things to matter. You want more things to be interesting. Now, it's true. The central theme of this show will always be Florida State. And a lot of you only tune in to hear Florida State stuff. And when I start talking about anything else, whether it be a non-sports topic or any other sport but football or anything that has nothing to do with Florida State specifically, you tune out. There's still another large contingent of people who would rather me not even talk about Florida State. In fact, some of my listeners, I'd say maybe 20%, really tune in because they find the show to be entertaining, whatever it is I'm talking about. It might be a baseball card. It could be about how nature wants to kill you. It could be about any number of things. Speaking of which, I went down that path yesterday, and trying to look up which animals kill the most amount of people every year. Obviously, I know the number one answer is mosquitoes. And then if I was being technical, I would say, well, human beings are animals, so we kill each other at an alarming rate. So there's those two. But I wondered, after those two, what came? Next, what was the biggest thing on the list? I found out. It was interesting. But then I went down this path of watching hippos attack boats and wondering how a 9,000-pound animal can run over 20 miles per hour, which is just evolutionarily amazing to think about. Anyhow, hippos are not to be toyed with, gang. So back to this. Because I want more sports to matter to more people, I like it when something emerges. When there's a new sport or a sport that in the past has never really been all that well received, and it's being welcomed by more and more people. That's good for a sports talk radio host. So NASCAR, as I say, back in the day, would send people to the studio that I worked in at Clear Channel, and they would have these packages for the Daytona 500. And they'd say, listen, we're going to give away infield passes to the Daytona 500 next week to anybody that, can answer this trivia question or whatever it was. And they would have a representative come on and talk about that and talk about the race. Invariably, one of the perks of this job is that frequently, if they're trying to win you over to get you to talk about something, or they have a buy, if you will, in which you have to talk about something because your bosses tell you to, they will invite you to do things. I've had the good fortune of covering the Stanley Cup Finals, the Super Bowl, the World Series, obviously into countless national championship games and all that for football. But I've been invited 4 or 5 times to go watch a race, to go be part of the proceedings at Daytona, to see what it's like, to experience it in person, the raw power, the sounds, and obviously the sights. And I've just never done it. I've never took them up on their offers because I've never been able to, quote unquote, get the sport. It seems to me like I would be bored to tears, that it's very loud and that I'm watching cars just drive in a circle. And while I'm willing to admit that just like the next guy, anytime a car, it could be a video, it could be anything that you're watching. If a car is moving at extreme speeds, that in and of itself is worth noting. Oh, that guy is hauling ass. Man, wonder what it's like to go that fast. I wonder what it's like to approach 200 miles per hour. So I don't usually belittle, the drivers, and I don't belittle, maybe if they say something stupid, which they frequently do, but beyond that, I don't belittle like the skill that it takes to do that, or the nerves of steel that you need to possess, or the courage that it takes to get into a car and go that fast, to be surrounded by other cars who are right on your bumper and next to you going the same speed, knowing all the while that one wrong move means you could be into the wall and be turned over for. I marvel at all of it. I don't know how people are wired that way. I do kind of admire that. I think that's a really cool thing, to be able to be that kind of fearless in the face of that kind of danger, all those things. But as far as like the technical aspects and why one team is better than another team, or if you will, a driver is a better driver than another driver. Like I've yet to get a satisfactory answer that tells me that somebody is worth following because of the way they drive, as opposed to they've got a better car because they have more money and a better team. That's the thing about auto racing that bothers me, is that I don't think it's a skillless sport. I just think that much of that is mitigated by the fact that all of the guys can really drive a car, like better than anybody in the world, just about, right? It's like all the people on the PGA Tour hit a golf ball better than anybody else you know, and it's not close. And these guys on the track are better drivers than anybody you've ever met, I'm sure. But I want to know, because it is a sport, what differentiates one driver from the other. And I don't like knowing that maybe somebody is at a distinct disadvantage, not because they're lesser of a driver, but because they don't belong to the right team and they don't have the right amount of money. That's of no interest to me. So this is a long-winded way of saying, as much as I've tried, I can't. And I did it again this year. And here are my questions that I want email answers to. I want to know why they can never get the weather right. And I want to know that And I don't understand. I know weather is not an exact science. There are a lot of measurements and calculations based on previous years and the data that they have suggesting that this might happen, or here's a percentage chance that it could happen. They very rarely tell you 100% of the time this is what is going to be. I know it's inexact science. Okay, I got it. But they have a pretty good idea with the radar and such of when rain clouds are in the area. And you kind of know, by the way, when it's going to rain. You got a pretty good idea. You may not get the temperature exactly right. You may not get the time when a storm is going to blow in. You know, you may say it's going to be around 10 a.m. It's going to be around 11 a.m. You might not say it's going to be 11:06. And therefore, if you have anything scheduled at 11:06, you got to be careful because of rain. I get that. But why would you start the race only to have to stop? They moved the race up an hour and 11 minutes yesterday just so they could get 11 laps in. I don't know, man. We're all grown-ups. We get it. You could tell everybody that, hey, even trying to move this up like we are doesn't look like we're going to be free and clear of this rain for hours. Instead of this being as scheduled, it looks like we're going to be racing in the night. We've got lights. We're going to be all right. You know what? Nothing better than a little dinner time Daytona 500. If you can't stay up that late, tape it, get up, watch it in the morning. But we're going today at this time. We're going to make sure we don't have to stop and start and all the nonsense. So they go and they move it up an hour and 11 minutes, and they get 11 laps in. So that's 11 of, 200 laps, right? So 11 of the 200 laps, stop, start nonsense, right? The other part is that you have you have the delay, and then you burn off in total, because of the weather problems, 20 of the 200 laps, I guess, just are spent drying the track and warming up the tires. So it feels a little bit like 31 of the 200 laps are just discarded as really kind of not mattering at all, or I don't know, it's convoluted. Let's put it that way. It's convoluted. It seems odd that you would do any of that in your Super Bowl of racing. And it doesn't seem like a good thing to me. Another thing that doesn't seem like a good thing to me, and again, asking questions for the masses here, William Byron, the guy who won. Now, he's won back-to-back, so obviously he's a talent, and I don't know what makes him great, but he's won back-to-back Daytona 500, so he's obviously, and again, I don't know a damn thing about racing, so he's got to be good, though, right? I can deduce that. I probably am not going to be in love with a sport that allows somebody who is sitting in ninth with 1 lap to go to win the race. A race that was marred by 3.5 hours of weather delays, 2 different ones, and a billion wrecks that send us to overtimes. It seems weird that they made a convoluted mess of what they call themselves the Super Bowl of racing. And I get that wrecks are a huge part of the sport. In fact, I know that it is commonplace for people who don't understand the sport, that's this guy, and people who don't like the sport, that's this guy, to say something that probably pisses off a lot of people who do know a lot about the sport and care a lot about the sport, which is some of you listening right now. You probably cringe every time you hear a layman say, I just watch it for the wrecks. I just watch it for, I would think that the average NASCAR fan also likes wrecks, but that's not why you're watching. You're watching for the skill. You're watching to see the decision-making. You're watching for the teams. You're watching for those intense moments when a guy takes a chance and slingshots and passes another racer or whatever. And you're watching for the drafting and the tires and all the things and the different tracks and the elements. I get it. And I don't want to belittle any of that, because I think that has to be why you're watching, right? Because you care about those things and you're interested in those things and you understand them better than I do. Got it. But even for somebody who is a simpleton when it comes to NASCAR and does say things like, well, I'll watch if there's going to be a bunch of wrecks, didn't it seem excessive? I don't think I could ever, I don't like things that are just haphazard. Like if I'm the best race car driver in the world, all right, I'm the very best there is. And I don't know how one deduces that, but let's just say we've come to the conclusion that I am one of the 3 best racers in the world. I don't like knowing that some slap ass who doesn't know what he's doing or is an unnecessary risk taker that endangers all the other drivers routinely, is a guy that is a problem at all of our races, can ruin, in essence, my opportunity to win one of the biggest races that's on the circuit, that you would forever be known as a Daytona. It'd be like winning the Masters, right? It's like a major, or winning the U.S. Open or something like that. I don't want my chances of winning that to be thrown out the window by recklessness and risk-taking that goes above and beyond. And I don't want that to happen where I benefit. Like this guy's in 9th, and there's just a series of wrecks. And I know afterwards they're like, well, he was able to avoid, and NASCAR let him race to the end, and at the end he came. That's how he went from 9th to 1st, Jeff, is he avoided the traffic and all the problems that were caused by the. I don't know about all that. Sounds an awful lot like he was in the right place, which was 9th. In the right place at the right time. Like the guy that's winning the race that gets taken out by some moron next to him seems to me was doing a better job of racing before he just arbitrarily got thrown into the wall. I know that Rubbin's racing and wrecks happen. Just seemed like between the weather delays, which I think could have been avoided, and the frequency with which the accidents occurred and the crashes occurred, you just did an awful lot yesterday to mitigate the enthusiasm surrounding your Super Bowl of racing. I struggle a little bit with the idea that it's that haphazard. Am I all wrong on this? I've told people before, but I'll tell you again, you can email me. I get them. Jeff@warchant.com. I read them. I don't get back to everybody, but I read them. So if I'm all wrong on this, let me know. And if there is some sort of entryway into the sport that I've missed, maybe it is just I have to go, that there's nothing like it, and that that once I'm there, I'll understand that all the things that I've piled, all the reasons that I don't like it, kind of dissipate. They just go away. Because if that's the case, I'll do it. But if I had gone yesterday, man, that would have been aggravating as hell. I mean, get the weather right. Just give us a time. Tell us it's going to be 5 p.m. Tell us it's going to be 8 p.m. That's fine. Just don't have us out here lollygagging and watching a wreck-filled thing and just arbitrary. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
This is Jay of Paul's Termite and Pest Control. There are many companies out there selling pest treatment programs at prices which seem too good to be true. Like most things, you get what you pay for. Let's separate the fact from the fiction. Fiction. The price these companies offer includes all visits needed to keep a home pest-free. Fact. Their prices only include regular visits for exterior treatments. If you encounter pests inside your home, these companies will charge you for additional visits. Is that really pest prevention? At Paul's Termite and Pest Control, we always apply exterior treatments, but our plan includes a significant difference. Whenever you encounter an interior problem, Paul's technicians are there, usually the same day you call, and there is no extra charge. With ProShield, you'll never pay extra for providing the service we promised. Pest prevention for your home, and we'll be there as many times as needed to honor our commitment with no extra charge. Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a local company that proudly served the Tallahassee area for over 50 years.
For the elimination of termites and any other pests,
call Paul's. We'll get them all.
and we make lawns greener too.
At Epps Decorating Center, we're your locally owned Benjamin Moore retailer. We're your store for quality with brilliant and durable paints in a variety of sheens and thousands of colors. We're your store for service with one-on-one advice for contractors and homeowners. We're your local experts, and we're here to help with all your painting projects. Benjamin Moore, available at Epps Decorating Center with 2 locations in Tallahassee. Find a store near you and visit EppsDecorating.com. That's EppsDecorating.com.
Join Boys Town by providing direct care for youth in a safe and caring family-style living environment. As a family teacher, receive a $20,000 hiring bonus. Boys Town family teachers are a married couple that have the unique job of caring for children that are not their own by teaching, guiding, and preparing girls and boys for success in life. This is a live-in position. Join us in helping youth reach their full potential as a family teaching couple at Boys Town. Apply at boystown.org/careers.
This is Thomas Dickens from the law office of Marie Maddox. I'm a combat veteran and a former JAG. I've fought for our country, and now I fight to get you your back wages. If your boss has ever shorted your paycheck or withheld your overtime, you need to call me now. 850-383-4800. 850-383-4800. Or find us online at maddoxlaw.com.
Offices in Tallahassee. There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Not a subject I normally get into, but I am going to talk to you for a moment about something that happened in track. I know. Well, yeah, but it's about a world record, and it's a world record that was broken. And it is something to truly marvel at. I'm speaking of a half marathon record. Now, as you well know, don't talk much in the way of marathon or half marathon or any sort of running whatsoever. Occasionally it'll come up if a Florida State athlete is amongst the world's best at something, in particular if it's like the 100 meters or something like that we're all, seems to me most people will give a little leeway if you're going to talk about people who run really fast in short bursts. That tends to grab our attention in a way that most other events in track and field do not. So this stood out to me, if only because you don't see this every day. A man you've never heard of, unless you're really, really into this sort of thing, and maybe you are. His name is Jacob Kiplimo. Became the first man to break 57 minutes in the half marathon. Now, if you had asked me what the world record was in the half marathon, I would have told you I have no idea. I would have tried to deduce based on obviously knowing how long a half marathon is, and I would have guessed about the average pace, and I would have come up with a number that might have been relatively close to what this is. But here's why I bring it up. He broke this record by 48 seconds. Can you imagine breaking a record, any record, so thoroughly, demolish a record to that extent, and then keep your pants on? No chance. It's not like they wear a lot of clothing in these marathons as is. Mine would be on the ground the second I crossed the finish line. If I looked up as I crossed said finish line and saw that I had just broken a record by 48 seconds. 48 seconds. It'd be as if the bench world record were, 600 pounds. I don't know what the bench world record is. I imagine it's probably something crazy like that. If somebody benched 800 pounds or 900 pounds with the record being 600, that's 40. Who beats? He couldn't even believe he broke the record to that extent. Couldn't believe it. And for my dogs can't believe it in the background, if you can hear them. 48 seconds clocked in at 56:42. He's the first man to ever break 57 minutes. Afterwards, he said, "That's astonishing." He couldn't believe it. His overall pace yesterday en route to shattering this record was 4 minutes, 19 and a half seconds per mile. Sirs, madams, Can you imagine running over and over and over and over? I can keep going. And over again. A mile, another mile, another mile, another mile. We're going to keep going at a 4-minute clip, 4-minute and 19-second clip. That is insane. The previous record of 57:30 was set by an Ethiopian star whose name I will butcher for your entertainment, Yomif Kachelka, in 2024. I didn't know that either. A record he took from the guy who just whooped his ass by 48 seconds, Kiplimo. That, at the time, became the world record by 1 second. He beat him by 1 second. So this guy, who now owns the record, gets beat by Kachelka. Seemingly, I would think, probably, you lose your world record, you might be devastated. You might be a little frustrated. You might think, I've just got to push harder. I've just got to get better. Clearly, my man put in the work. Not only does he come back and say, all right, you got my record, did you? Get you some of this and lay it on the table. Here's 48 seconds for that ass that you've got to try to catch. 48 seconds. It was the largest single improvement. Forgive me for reading. I have to here. I know none of these records. I know none of these names. I've never even looked at a time for a half marathon other than when friends tell me they ran a half marathon. I go, oh, okay, well, what'd you average? And for me, if you average anything under 8 minutes a mile, well, sweet Jesus, you're in great shape. I mean, that seems like it to me because running sucks. 48 seconds off the right, largest single improvement on the men's world half marathon record in history. Well, one would think, like, I can't imagine that at any other point in history, somebody breaks a record and then some other dude comes along and whoops his ass by 48 seconds. 48 seconds. It's like, you could call these other runners children. That's what they are to you, children, while you're a grown man. Ideal weather conditions were partly to credit, apparently, according to people who cover half marathons and running. Well, he had perfect weather conditions. I guess, was it a gale force at his back the whole way? Wasn't. It was, quote, wind free, because if I remember anything about all this stuff is that the winds matter. If you have a wind in your favor, at your back, if you will, in a race, it is duly noted. In fact, I'm pretty sure, and again, you track people will correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that those kinds of records are not allowed to stand. It's a certain limit. It's insane. I reached out to my track buddy. I reached out to a guy who listens to this show regularly and who is really knowledgeable in these things. And I texted him this morning and I said, how the hell does somebody break a world record by 48 seconds? Now, he knows every track record that's ever existed. He could probably name the people, the year that it was broken, all that stuff. He said, and I quote, I thought it was some idiot reporter who didn't understand that he should have typed in 4.8 seconds, that it was ludicrous to believe you could break the half by 48 seconds. Yes, it is ludicrous to think anybody could break any record. 48 seconds. This should be made into a bigger deal. So I'm going to read from the article itself. He pulled it off thanks to ideal weather conditions, wind-free and 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Beautiful day. A pristine pacing. The 24-year-old was on pace to reclaim the record from the first kilometer Sunday, opening with a 13:34 first 5K, and then hitting the gas as he hit 10K in 26:46. Have you ever run a 5K? I've run a 5K. And I've watched the people who show up to run a 5K, and they're very serious, some of them, and that's good. Hey, listen, If you train that hard and you can run at an elite pace, you get focused, you do your thing, and good on you. I am not mocking in any way. I'm mocking myself when I laugh when I talk about this because of how slow I run any distance, like any great distance. There was a time in my life where I was very fast in short bursts. I did run. I was on the track team. I did run what we called back then the 440. It's the 400 meter and the 440 relay. I did that. I ran the 220, the 200 as it's known. I was a pretty fast guy, but short bursts. And I would marvel at people who ran great distances because I loathe it with every fiber of my being. The whole time I run, if I run any more, like when I'm at Orange Theory, if I run more than a mile straight, my brain says, this is stupid, we should leave. It's the first thing that pops into my brain. Not like, oh, I'm tired, or focus on this, or get to your breathing. No, my brain goes, this sucks, we should leave. Nobody's making you come here. Why are you are not required to do this. Just leave. Just go home. It's what my brain says over and over. So I'm laughing aloud as I see that this guy ran a 13-minute and 34-second 5K and then, quote, hit the gas and ran an even faster pace in his 10K. A 10K in 26 minutes. Quote, it has been the perfect race, Caplimo told reporters. Ideal temperature, really no wind, a fantastic circuit. Everything went better than I expected. Well, I would hope. Imagine if you finished that race and you were bitterly disappointed with having broke the record by 48 seconds. It has been a great year, he goes on to say, proven his fortitude in the half marathon's midsection as he previously set the world record in the road 15K, a 15K with a time of 40 minutes and 42 seconds. He did that in the Netherlands last year. He had the record very briefly. It was broken. He came back, did this. He's world class. It's, he goes on to say, I wanted to have a great race, but I certainly didn't expect that I was going to break the world record. And I certainly didn't expect that I was going to break the world record by 48 seconds. And thus ends my diatribe on a subject I've spoken in 27 years, maybe twice, only probably to make fun of myself. But all hail the new world record holder, Jacob Caplimo, who became the first man to break 57 minutes in a half marathon and the first man to break a world record that I'm sure nobody knew the number, but I can't imagine in the history of the world, that anybody has broken a record by 48 seconds. This is absurd. Bonus hour coming up. Stay tuned. Chef Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV.
This is Jay of Paul Termite and Pest Control. There are many companies out there selling pest treatment programs at prices which seem too good to be true. Like most things, you get what you pay for. Let's separate the fact from the fiction. Fiction. The price these companies offer includes all visits needed to keep a home pest-free. Fact. Their prices only include regular visits for exterior treatment. If you encounter pests inside your home, these companies will charge you for additional visits. Is that really pest prevention? At Paul's Termite and Pest Control, we always apply exterior treatments, but our plan includes a significant difference. Whenever you encounter an interior problem, Paul's technicians are there, usually the same day you call, and there is no extra charge. With ProShield, you'll never pay extra for providing the service we promised. Pest prevention for your home, and we'll be there as many times as needed to honor our commitment with no extra charge. Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a local company that proudly served the Tallahassee area for over 50 years.
For the elimination of termites and any other pests,
call Paul's. We'll get them all.
And we make lawns greener, too.
At Epps Decorating Center, we're your locally owned Benjamin Moore retailer. We're your store for quality with brilliant and durable paints in a variety of sheens and thousands of colors. We're your store for service with one-on-one advice for contractors and homeowners. We're your local experts, and we're here to help with all your painting projects. Benjamin Moore, available at Epps Decorating Center with 2 locations in Tallahassee. Find a store near you and visit EppsDecorating.com. That's EppsDecorating.com.
Join Boys Town by providing direct care for youth in a safe and caring family-style living environment. As a family teacher, receive a $20,000 hiring bonus. Boys Town family teachers are a married couple that have the unique job of caring for children that are not their own by teaching, guiding, and preparing girls and boys for success in life. This is a live-in position. Join us in helping youth reach their full potential as a family teaching couple at Boys Town. Apply at boystown.org/careers.
This is Thomas Dickens from the law office of Marie Maddox. I'm a combat veteran and a former JAG. I've fought for our country, and now I fight to get you your back wages. If your boss has ever shorted your paycheck or withheld your overtime, you need to call me now. 850-383-4800. 850-383-4800. Or find us online at maddoxlaw.com. Offices in Tallahassee.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Bonus hour, if you will. Thanks for joining us on a holiday. Hope you're well. Driving about town, listening on 93.3 Real Talk Radio. Appreciate you always. And if you're watching on Warchant TV on YouTube, we appreciate you as well. If you're in the chat, you're talking to each other. This is pre-recorded, as I noted at the start of the show today, but all fresh content coming off those few days we had off last week. It was a great weekend that was obviously mentioned in the first hour. First hour is mostly all things Florida State, by the way, if you're tuning in late. But what a joy it was to obviously get back over to Dick Howser Stadium, Mike Martin Field, to see this Florida State baseball team, which gives up all of 2 runs over the weekend. Only one of those runs earned. I thought Wes Mendez was fantastic yesterday. Really, if you think about all of Florida State's arms, they were very, very good this weekend. It was one after the other. For the most part, you can see the potential for them to be able to get a lot of outs. Mendez yesterday, 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 8 Ks, 1 walk, no runs, 70 pitches. That is the other part of this, is that for the most part, Florida State's pitchers economical. You go back to the interview that I did with Mike Capozzi, the pitching coach for Florida State. If you haven't watched that, I've encouraged you to do so. I really love listening to the way they teach their pitchers to attack, the philosophy, mindset. Now, I know it's pervasive in baseball. It's not unique to them, but learning of it, the race to 2 strikes, how when you're charting your pitchers and you're taking a look at how often they get to 2 strikes before they get to 2 balls, that is the critical element of what you're looking for if a guy's being effective and is ahead, if you will. It's funny. He used the example of Barry Bonds talking about the key to being a great hitter, to making hard contact, to hitting for power to all fields is really nothing more than getting in a good hitter's count, understanding the at-bat, understanding what pitchers are trying to do to you, putting yourself as consistently as you possibly can in a hitter's count. So when you're going to the ballpark, you're thinking about that from an offensive standpoint. When you watch this team, how often do you find yourself in 1-0, in 2-1, in 3-1, 3-2, any of those counts that are advantageous to hitters? And when you're watching our pitchers, you're doing the same thing. Just chart how often it's 0-1, it's 1-2, it's 2-2. The advantageous position for pitchers. So I saw a lot of that this weekend, meaning Florida State in favorable counts one way or the other. I saw a lot of guys that are able to execute lots of different kinds of pitches and throw for strikes. So often, listen, if you got 2 dominant pitchers, you don't need a third. It's nice to have it. But we all watched Pedro Martinez for many years operate. He could go entire games and go fastball changeup and watch guys screw themselves into the ground. Obviously, he had more than that. He could be dominant with the curveball, but you could watch him dominate starts with 2 pitches. And I think when I'm watching Florida State's pitchers, I see guys that have 3 and 4, and in some cases 5 pitches that they can throw for strikes. It's one thing to say I can throw a slider, I can throw a changeup, I can throw a curveball. It's all another to say, can you throw it when you want to for a strike? That you're not just relying on somebody going fishing for a ball, but a pitch that you can throw for a strike, that if they spit on it, you're rung up. And I saw a lot of that this weekend too. It's early. We've owned James Madison, that's for sure. A lot lately in the last few years. Did over the weekend. Competition will get a lot better. All of it's true. You always put that caveat out there, but I'm going to tell you, I feel like the pitching is going to allow for Florida State to figure out the hitting. And they hit fine this weekend, obviously. And they were given a lot of extra outs, as I talked about in hour 1, because James Madison's defense was dreadful. But I think you can see a concerted effort. Link is clearly going to want to use the athleticism, the added athleticism to this lineup. He's going to want to use that on the base paths, and that seems to ring true. Of his managing style over the weekend with the stolen bases and pressing the issue. The young guys are exciting. You can see the potential there. The transfers are exciting. You can see the potential there. I didn't really mention much of Joey Vellini, who was very, very good. Kind of got screwed out of getting a win because unfortunately Drew Farrow couldn't pick up the ball on a routine ground ball. Would have given him a 5th inning completed. Instead, he goes 4 2/3, but he was very good as well. It's going to be fun. Florida State's got guys, and Gage Harrelson looks like he's going to be a spark plug for this team. You already know what Max Williams is. You've got a lot of guys that mean that there's a lot of fun to be had while watching this team grow. Because, again, I think the pitching is going to let them figure everything else out about who they are and what they are offensively and how they want to set that lineup and how they're going to try to extend that lineup. Last year, they had so much power that, you couldn't take a breath when you got to 6, 7, and 8. I mean, it was, if you were an opposing pitcher facing Florida State's lineup, it was so lengthened with power that if you missed to the 6-hole hitter, if you missed to the 7-hole hitter, there's a chance that ball wasn't coming back. So I don't know that this team will have that kind of length in the lineup, that kind of power, certainly. Florida State was one of the most prodigious offenses in baseball a year ago. But I do think they have guys that'll hurt you. I do think they have guys that if getting on base is the key here, and it usually is, non-outs, if you will, can do something about it once they get there. Can go from first to third, can steal second base, can do those sorts of things. So that was really good to see. Obviously, we mentioned that. I commented in the first hour on the situation with the basketball team and how untenable it is and how the interviews continue. And Luke Clouks is in town. And I don't know who's going to get that job. I do feel a little bit better about any of the guys interviewing that do have Florida State ties. I normally don't think that way. I normally don't care if somebody's affiliated with the school or not. You just want the best man for the job. I do think in this case, the way you have to navigate that position at Florida State, where that sport sits in the pantheon of sports at Florida State, you might need to have that background. You might need to have that yearning and that love, that burning inside your chest for Florida State to try to help overcome some of the deficiencies that you're going to have to work with. But number one is you got to have some NIL plan to get some players in here. They just don't have enough good players, and they won't be able to consistently compete with those that invest so much more money in their basketball program. So there is that. Now, turns out February is going to be a little bit busier than we thought in the realm of football. And I spent some time talking about Gus Malzahn's comments and goals for this offense as we heard from him over in Orlando as Mike Norvell took the staff over there. But in the world of college football, understand this. There was last spring a memorandum of understanding in which the SEC and the Big Ten, in essence, hold sole discretion of the future of college football and the college football playoff format specifically, starting in 2026, okay? The beginning of the college football playoffs new 6-year television agreement with ESPN that runs through 2031 begins in 2026. And if you didn't know it already, the Big Ten and the SEC hold all the cards. In fact, there was that memorandum of understanding saying as much. If you recall, how did we arrive at this place? There were heated negotiations over the future of college football and college football's playoff, right? At that time, the leaders of the Big Ten and the SEC threatened to take their ball and go home, threatened to create their own postseason system if they were not granted the majority of college football playoffs revenue and full authority over the playoff format. They basically said, if you don't like what we're doing with the sport and the direction we're taking the sport and what we want mapped out within the sport, well, then fine. We will break away. The Big Ten and the SEC will break away, and we will have our own playoff separate of all of you. And we hold the cards here. We have the contracts and the money and the ratings, and you don't. And it would behoove you to acquiesce to what we want to do. So in the end, that's exactly what happened. Executives of the 10 FBS leagues and Notre Dame signed that memorandum of understanding and handed control over college football's future to the two richest conferences. You see the trend here? There's a lot going on with the rich. That's what you have going on here. All right. And they're going to now exercise that control, and we're going to learn how real soon. Within the SEC and the Big Ten, according to Ross Dellinger in a piece written yesterday, that I'll quote from that piece, momentum is building to further expand the playoff. It's going to go from it's going to go from 12 to 14 first. And or 16, they may just make the jump now from 12 to 16. It was always thought that it was going to go to 14. Now there seems to be momentum gaining. I think they should skip the step. There's no reason to ease into those waters. If you're eventually going to land at 16, just go to 16. Now, the ship has sailed as far as arguing whether this is good for college football. It's what is now. College football has a playoff. We just watched it play out. You either loved it or you hated it or you were indifferent, whatever you were, but the ship has sailed. And there's no going back. We know that. And if there's an opportunity to make more money, they will. And they're going to go to 16. So I wish they would just get it over with and go to 16. So what does it look like? Well, they're going to, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to assign multiple automatic qualifiers per league. They're going to have as many as 4 each for themselves. So if you go to a 16-team playoff, The SEC will have 4 automatic qualifiers. The Big Ten will have 4 automatic qualifiers. So half of your field is going to be Big Ten and SEC. And if you didn't think there was a need to get out of this conference before, you certainly continue to see the signs on the wall that you are and also ran for as long as you're in the ACC. I know there's a path to the playoff, but you are a second-class citizen if you are not in the Big Ten or the SEC. I don't like it. I wish it weren't that way, but that is the reality of our situation. And you are at a massive deficit financially so long as you are in a second-tier conference, which is what any of the conferences, including the Big 12, which is seemingly now in third, has surpassed the ACC. Strong commissioner. And I just continue to sit here absolutely flummoxed by the idea of falling further and further and further behind and having the very real disadvantages that Florida State faces at a time in which they are in flux. It is frustrating. Anyhow, the playoff format change clears the way for the SEC to do what they've talked about doing for a very long time, which is they're going to move to play 9 regular season conference games. It seems that all 4 power leagues would overhaul at that point their conference championships. And these are all things that have been talked about in previous articles in ESPN or at Yahoo with Ross Dellinger. Many other, The Athletic wrote a piece on this. But the difference is these are agenda items within the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and ACC. And it has been agreed to. Those officials for those leagues noted that, yes, this is something that is on our agenda. It is something we are talking about. As recently as last week, the 10 FBS conference commissioners and Notre Dame's athletic director were contacted for that Dellinger story and wanted to know, were those ideas being discussed currently? Many said that, yes, that was on the agenda. They declined to comment further on the record. So final decisions are expected to happen within this month or early next. The SEC and Big Ten athletic directors meet Wednesday in New Orleans for the second time in the last 5 months. Big 12 directors are expected to discuss the future playoff format at a meeting this week as well. The ACC's athletic directors and presidents did so last week in Charlotte, North Carolina. So this is all stuff that is on the agenda currently. Now, you turn your attention to the college football playoff management committee. They meet at the end of this month, February 25th in Dallas. The SEC and the Big Ten plan in that moment to present ideas about this future format. It's a consensus recommendation that the 2 leagues are probably going to establish this week in New Orleans. So you're going to get news coming out of New Orleans this week between those 2 leagues. If they can come to a consensus, many believe that they absolutely will, on the way that they view the college football playoff format and what they are going to ask on behalf of those 2 leagues regarding that format, which is the aforementioned 4 automatic spots for both the Big Ten and the SEC. Now, the agreement grants the league, those 2 leagues, decision-making powers over the format. It does, and this is just for the purpose of putting it in there, but we all know what's really going on here. They are supposed to have meaningful consultation. They are supposed to collect input from all of the other conferences before making a decision, a final decision on the format changes and what they want. I ask you, do you really believe that the Big Ten and the SEC in particular, which has shown contempt for the mere existence of any other league, do you really believe they're going to have, quote, meaningful consultation with the Big 12? Do you think they're going to have meaningful consultation regarding the future of college football and the direction they want it to go and the format in the playoff with the ACC? They would scoff at the mere mention of it. If Jim Phillips, I'd like to weigh in. Yeah. Okay, Jim, go ahead. Yeah, thanks for your input, pal. and onward we move. They're going to steamroll that guy. Leaders in each conference allegedly have, in the last several weeks, have looked at this and said they have a real hard time about any model that would grant 4 automatic qualifiers to the SEC, 4 automatic qualifiers to the Big Ten. At issue would be what we just saw play out. The SEC was a bit of a flawed league last year. Was it still one of the best 2 leagues? Yeah. Were they far and away a better league than the Big 12? Were they far and away better than all the other leagues that play college football? It was debatable. It was a little debatable last year. I think we saw that. I think we realized that, right? The Big Ten has kind of assumed the mantle right now. And I think there's real pushback on the idea that the SEC continues to state emphatically that they are unquestionably the best league in college football, and if not the best, the second best league in college football. So what would happen here? That meaningful consultation isn't going to matter. 2 automatic qualifiers would go to the ACC, 2 would go to the Big 12, and then 1 to the highest ranked Group of 5 champion. Includes 1 or 3 at-large spots. One of those intended for Notre Dame. Obviously, if it finishes ranked, it's just inside the top 14, they would get in. A guarantee specifically designated for the Irish that is part of the college football playoff memorandum. This also bothers me, just like it bothers all of you. None of us love the idea that Notre Dame has this singular place in the sport in which they are kowtowed to. That people say, it's Notre Dame. I get it. What a great season they had. That was a good football team. Obviously, got to the national championship game, not dismissing their accomplishments this past year, but we've also watched over the last, 35 years in which Notre Dame frequently had seasons in which they were just sort of an average football team. And yet they always have these special conditions that they operate under. I would think that the ACC and the Big 12 wouldn't enjoy that either. By the way, the 14-team format, if they go to that, would be a 4-4-2-2 and then a final 1-versus-1 model in which the 2 top seeds receive first-round buys. That's what they're looking at. There would be no buys in a 16-team structure. That's another reason that I don't want a 14-team playoff. Just go straight to the 16-team structure. The college football selection committee's role is greatly diminished to some extent. I'm glad that it's greatly diminished. The committee's future, according to that memorandum and the Ross Dellinger piece, stipulates, and again, this is controlled by the SEC and the Big Ten, presumably seeds 1 through 14 or 16 based directly on its top 25 rankings is how this would work. And again, the Big 12 and the ACC are not in support of a format with that many automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten and the SEC. Jim Phillips told Yahoo Sports this past week that the ACC has not cemented a position on a format, but, quote, there needs to be fairness and access to the championship. It needs to be a true championship, not artificial and not an invitational. Well, it's been an invitational for some time. FSU found that out the hard way. The Big 12 commissioner, Brett Yormack, says his conference is exploring predictive analysis on what different playoff models would mean for conference participation if applied in the recent history of the postseason. I'll be armed with data, he told Yahoo Sports. Well, it sounds like a commissioner who's doing his due diligence. The Group of 5 leaders are prepared to fight to potentially expand upon their 1 automatic access spot. According to comments made by the American Athletic Conference Commissioner, Tim Pernetti, college football is stronger than ever. As the college football playoff evolves, we have a responsibility to student athletes, the integrity of the game, and our fans to build a future that includes expanded access for every conference. At the very least, the Group of 5 will keep its 1 automatic spot through 2031. That's part of the 6-year extension with ESPN. The conferences agreed to cede decision-making powers on format to the SEC and the Big Ten. I wouldn't have done that. They have. there are certain agreed upon guarantees of any future format. One would be the automatic inclusion of the 5 highest ranked conference champions. 2, the protection for independent Notre Dame, which is nonsense. And 3, a field of 12 of 14 teams. So we conclude with this. This is where we're at. ESPN is paying $1.3 billion annually to the college football playoff for the rights to broadcast the playoff from 2026 through 2031. ESPN executives have not publicly commented, but they have expressed to college leaders real apprehension about a format that provides lopsided automatic access. And their concern, or at least it's believed they're concerned, because I think that may be faux concern. But publicly, they would like it to be known they have concerns. Now, if there is a legitimate concern, it might be, if you're ESPN, that you absolutely alienate part of the country with this format, with this setup. The 6-year extension laid out in the Memorandum of Understanding is not yet finalized, is expected to be completed later this spring. There is not expected to be any new television revenue if the field is expanded to 14, as the figure is included in the memorandum. If the field does expand to 16, according to Dellinger, it may require negotiations from the leagues for more revenue. 14-team playoff features 2 more first-round games, clogging television windows during the 3rd week in December when the college football playoff competes against the NFL. A 16-team bracket means an additional 4 games, 8 first-round games instead of 4. They're taking out the data, they're checking out the data and the revenue and trying to figure it out. When I read all of this, and we talk about this and have this conversation consistently on this show, as we do now, this is of the utmost concern for all of us. If I bring it back home and I just look at it from Florida State's standpoint, it just feels like the things that are happening for the haves, and that we are part of the have-nots, and that doesn't sit well with you, and that doesn't sit well with me. And it is of grave concern that we continue to be in a 2nd place, 3rd place, 4th place, however you want to look at it, conference that has very little say in what's happening in the sport. And yet it is our most cared for and invested in a sport in college football. It is what drives the bus, and we all know it. And it just feels like we're falling further and further behind and have precious little say in something so important. And I sure hope that when it all shakes out, we get the news that the financial annual distribution, the payout, and the addendums and changes that have been made to foster more money for the power brokers of this league, namely Florida State and Clemson, that it is somewhere in a neighborhood that allows you to compete. Because the more the SEC and the Big Ten take control of the sport, obviously the less you have control. And obviously the perception of what you are and where you are and how it changes as everybody sees who is driving the sport. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
This is Jay of Paul Termite and Pest Control. There are many companies out there selling pest treatment programs at prices which seem too good to be true. Like most things, you get what you pay for. Let's separate the fact from the fiction. Fiction. The price these companies offer includes all visits needed to keep a home pest-free. Fact. Their prices only include regular visits for exterior treatments. If you encounter pests inside your home, these companies will charge you for additional visits. Is that really pest prevention? At Paul's Termite and Pest Control, we always apply exterior treatments, but our plan includes a significant difference. Whenever you encounter an interior problem, Paul's technicians are there, usually the same day you call, and there is no extra charge. With ProShield, you'll never pay extra for providing the service we promised. Pest prevention for your home, and we'll be there as many times as needed to honor our commitment with no extra charge. Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a local company that proudly served the Tallahassee area for over 50 years.
For the elimination of termites and any other pests,
Call Paul's. We'll get them all.
and we make lawns greener too.
At Epps Decorating Center, we're your locally owned Benjamin Moore retailer. We're your store for quality with brilliant and durable paints in a variety of sheens and thousands of colors. We're your store for service with one-on-one advice for contractors and homeowners. We're your local experts, and we're here to help with all your painting projects. Benjamin Moore, available at Epps Decorating Center with 2 locations in Tallahassee. Find a store near you and visit EppsDecorating.com. That's EppsDecorating.com.
Join Boys Town by providing direct care for youth in a safe and caring family-style living environment. As a family teacher, receive a $20,000 hiring bonus. Boys Town family teachers are a married couple that have the unique job of caring for children that are not their own by teaching, guiding, and preparing girls and boys for success in life. This is a live-in position. Join us in helping youth reach their full potential as a family teaching couple at Boys Town. Apply at boystown.org/careers.
This is Thomas Dickens from the law office of Marie Maddox. I'm a combat veteran and a former JAG. I've fought for our country, and now I fight to get you your back wages. If your boss has ever shorted your paycheck or withheld your overtime, you need to call me now. 850-383-4800. 850-383-4800. Or find us online at maddoxlaw.com.
Offices in Tallahassee. There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Mentioned this before. I'm going to switch to the NFL just for a second, but it actually involves Florida State. If you look at the 4 biggest risers over the last 2 weeks, as you start to look at the mock drafts as we enter into the offseason with free agency and the NFL, and you start taking a look at all the caps and the things, the situations that NFL teams find themselves in. And, I always love the draft, but I love the draft from the standpoint of, do we have a couple Florida State guys or 10? Ideally, when you're humming, there's that many as there were a couple of years ago. This year, not so much. Two guys, namely, that we're taking a good look at post Senior Bowl, and they both did a really good job of raising their stock. Josh Farmer is going to be a guy that's drafted within the first couple of rounds, it does appear. And then we mentioned it, where the Senior Bowl can have the greatest impact is on guys that were on bad teams that had real skill but got lost because they were mired in a muck of a lost season. And the guy I thought whose measurables would stand out, whose athleticism would stand out, who would interview extremely well and have a chance to skyrocket up the boards was Azareye'h Thomas. Azareye'h Thomas is a good football player. I think he's got to get better against the run. If I have some criticism against him, it was that he wasn't a big fan of tackling anybody. But, I think in a season in which the defense was largely hung out to dry and the losses mounted, you probably didn't get the best out of any number of guys, and that includes Azareye'h Thomas. There is some bad tape there for a lack of physicality or willingness in the run. But, corners aren't exactly paid by how frequently they tackle. Now, listen, again, it's a part of it. You'd rather have a guy that comes up and plays the run with physicality. You'd love to have a guy that comes up and is a willing combatant, if you will. But in truth, it's going to start with a whole lot of how well do you run? What are your measurables? So these days, the modern corners are getting bigger and longer. They're guys we would have considered to be sort of hybrid guys years ago. That's no longer the norm. We talked about how the opposing position of where the money is going in the league is usually the one that is quickly changing and on the rise to get paid, right? So if I'm an elite left tackle, or if there are elite defensive ends that have taken over the sports, the money then will go from them into left tackles and right tackles. Because we can't operate, as the Kansas City Chiefs just proved, without the ability to block. My quarterback, no matter how special, is a dead man walking, as the Chiefs found out against the Bucs, and as the Chiefs certainly found out against the Philadelphia Eagles, who quite literally did not blitz and dominated a football game way worse than the score because of their front four. Well, a few years ago, all of that money went into wide receivers, the freakish diva wide receivers that we talk about that can change games. That's where all the money went. Now, you saw the Eagles went back-to-back in the draft at corner. More and more people recognizing that we got to have somebody that can combat the best receivers of the game, and we'd like to leave some guys on an island every now and then. We don't want to constantly have to shade coverages over to dominant receivers. It negates a lot of what we want to do defensively. So Azareye'h Thomas is going to benefit greatly from his height, his length, his athleticism, and the fact that I think he has a chance to be a real pros pro. This is a guy who, if you draft high, you're not going to have to worry about him once he gets paid. There are guys you do worry about. There are guys who you think, if I give this guy $20 million, does he become a different dude? Was I in love with our research with what I found out? Did I find out that he hangs around good guys or bad guys? Does he surround himself with guys that he's going to continue to surround himself with that have questionable backgrounds and can become a problem, and especially now that we add money to the situation? Or is he a guy that is going to show up on time, probably early, put in the work to get better, try to improve himself every single day, and then go out and give me what I need on the field, and I don't have to worry about him. He's home at night. He's eating. He's in bed. He's taking care of his body. He's managing his life. He's being a professional, in short. Well, Azareye'h Thomas is one of those guys. This is a rock-solid individual. So this is a kind of a long-winded way of pointing out that multiple outlets that cover the drafts are starting to produce their mocks, and Azareye'h Thomas is considered to be, along with Darius Alexander, the defensive tackle from Toledo, and Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker from UCLA. These are the fastest risers of the upcoming draft. Azareye'h Thomas on that list as one of the four doing the most to help his cause this offseason. And good for you, Azareye'h Thomas. I enjoyed our conversation on the Jeff Cameron Show when you came on. I think the world of your ability and what you're capable of. And I think that that's a guy that many moons from now, you're going to regret a little bit that you didn't have him at a time where the pieces around him were a little bit better, or that you, as he was becoming the best version of himself, you were collapsing around him. Because I think we would have seen so much more production, so much more of what he could have been had there just been competent play last year. But alas, there really wasn't, and thus we have a new defensive coordinator in here, and I'm anxious to see what Tony White's going to do. While we're on the subject of FSU, I talked about it before in the second hour, or the first hour, I should say. But I want to get back to some other things that we heard from Gus Malzahn really quick. I told you that he said his goal is to coach the number one offense in the country. But he went on to talk about the way that they would accomplish that. And if you remember, and some of you have asked this question, I believe wholeheartedly that this is going to be the case. I love what he has to say about quarterback play, and I love what he has to say about catering to quarterback play, and I love what he has to say about how they're going to incorporate the passing element of his offense. Because, look, he says, while running the ball is most important, he said that he believes that if you can have a foundation of running the ball, you can set up big plays in the passing game. And I think one of the ways that Florida State's going to have to get around the perception of what hiring Gus Malzahn means to their offense is to have real success down the football field and making big plays within this offense. Because right now, Gus is a guy that gets hired and is seen by players and the fans of college football as a run-first guy, a guy that doesn't get quarterbacks drafted to the league. And if you're not busy sending guys to the league or potentially sending guys to the league at quarterback, receivers tend to opt for teams that are, because those are the guys, obviously, that are going to be throwing them the football. And if you're running an offense which is not only predicated on the run, but is your first, second, and third option, then you're going to have a hard time coercing elite level receivers to say yes to your program. So I continue from what it was he said in Orlando. Running the football, most important, 19-year college coaching veteran, made it clear that he loves using that foundation to set up big plays. Quote, you run the football, you then throw it deep. The combination of pounding the ball on the ground while mixing in exotic formation and pushing the tempo, this is what's made that offense so successful. Quote, who are we? We're a two-back run, play-action team. That's who we are. We're going to run it, and we're going to throw it deep and keep constant pressure on the defense and the defensive coaches by running the offense at a 2-minute pace the entire game. He talked about having a handful of plays. Inside zone, for example. Outside zone. Counter. That we are going to be able to run to perfection. That ultimately is how you set up everything else. You've got to be able to do this so well that in your sleep, you're getting 4 or 5 yards when you run these plays, that you're establishing this and that you do it better than everybody else. And it might just be a handful of plays that you run to perfection. You rep it so frequently that then off of that springs this passing game. And I think hearing him talk about making big plays, throwing the ball down the field for splash plays is what will help in the long run offset what I think is undoubtedly a perception of Florida State right now by many that we're recruiting, that Florida State, it's a fine place to go to if you're an offensive lineman. Fine place to go to if you're a running back. In fact, it might be a great place to go to if you're a running back. Might even be a great place to go to if you're sort of an H-back type, right? Like he had at UCF and like he's had everywhere he's ever been and like Florida State brought over from UCF. But will it be a great place for you as a wide receiver to showcase your skill set as a route runner, as a catcher, as somebody that can make big plays, that can score, that can do those things that NFL offenses want? This is their best chance to offset that. I hope we see it. Chef Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, and Warchant TV.
This is Jay of Paul's Termite and Pest Control. There are many companies out there selling pest treatment programs at prices which seem too good to be true. Like most things, you get what you pay for. Let's separate the fact from the fiction. Fiction. The price these companies offer includes all visits needed to keep a home pest-free. Fact. Their prices only include regular visits for exterior treatments. If you encounter pests inside your home, these companies will charge you for additional visits. Is that really pest prevention? At Paul's Termite and Pest Control, we always apply exterior treatments, but our plan includes a significant difference. Whenever you encounter an interior problem, Paul's technicians are there, usually the same day you call, and there is no extra charge. With ProShield, you'll never pay extra for providing the service we promised. Pest prevention for your home, and we'll be there as many times as needed to honor our commitment with no extra charge. Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a local company that proudly served the Tallahassee area for over 50 years.
For the elimination of termites and any other pests,
call Paul's. We'll get them all.
And we make lawns greener, too.
At Epps Decorating Center, we're your locally owned Benjamin Moore retailer. We're your store for quality with brilliant and durable paints in a variety of sheens and thousands of colors. We're your store for service with one-on-one advice for contractors and homeowners. We're your local experts, and we're here to help with all your painting projects. Benjamin Moore, available at Epps Decorating Center with 2 locations in Tallahassee. Find a store near you and visit EppsDecorating.com. That's EppsDecorating.com.
Join Boys Town by providing direct care for youth in a safe and caring family-style living environment. As a family teacher, receive a $20,000 hiring bonus. Boys Town family teachers are a married couple that have the unique job of caring for children that are not their own by teaching, guiding, and preparing girls and boys for success in life. This is a live-in position. Join us in helping youth reach their full potential as a family teaching couple at Boys Town. Apply at boystown.org/careers.
This is Thomas Dickens from the law office of Marie Maddox. I'm a combat veteran and a former JAG. I've fought for our country, and now I fight to get you your back wages. If your boss has ever shorted your paycheck or withheld your overtime, you need to call me now. 850-383-4800. 850-383-4800. Or find us online at maddoxlaw.com.
Offices in Tallahassee. There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Wrapping it up on this holiday edition of the Jeff Cameron Show. Appreciate you joining. Hope you're well. Hope you've enjoyed your day off. Thanks for tuning in to the program. You know, it occurs to me right now that this particular segment, beginning this week, guys, on Thursday, I believe it is, will feature probables. I don't know if we'll do probables for spring training games, as it tends to be kind of difficult. You get a lot of TBDs for spring training probables. Not real fun. Not the same as it is when I'm able to talk about the matchups. But in theory, we could do probables this week because spring training begins in earnest. It is that time of year. Where the weather shifts. We're enjoying the cool temperatures this week in Tallahassee one last time, as I think this will be the last of the cold snaps, but it's been enjoyable, and I will enjoy this week. But I have to admit, embracing spring, embracing the march forward, and the extended daylight soon that we get, I'm in my feels about it. Probables, probably later this week is a good thing. So why not conclude the show with this? Have we learned something we thought we would never learn? It started with Deshaun Watson. You and I sat back, kind of shocked, if we recall. Now it seems old hat. At one point, Deshaun Watson had nothing short of a pristine reputation. He was the pride of Clemson. Everybody loved him, right? And in his career, obviously, it skyrocketed to one of the best quarterbacks in the league when he was with the Texans. And you thought, man, this is a superstar. Now he's an oft-injured bum who is saddled with lots of court cases and tons of accusations stemming from his affinity for inappropriate behavior at the very least. At massage parlors, and extending, unfortunately, to much more serious allegations, which involve assault now. What's true, what isn't, I don't know. I just know that's an awful lot of smoke around that fire. And we also know what he's become as a player. But at that time, we talked about how, goodness gracious, Deshaun, how many massages do you need a week and how frequently you attend different massage parlors? I didn't even know there were that many in one single city. Well, we've learned the lesson, and now we've learned it again. And now we know that basically, if these allegations are true, if you're a guy that frequents massage parlors for something more than, say, a professional massage, you tend to be prolific. 7 more massage therapists have now accused Justin Tucker of inappropriate behavior, sexually inappropriate behavior. I think Tom may have been right. We can't take this case, JCSPR firm. I wanted to take it on initially because I believe at the JCSPR firm, you do everything in your power to massage the situation in your favor. That's what the PR firm is here for. You take on hard cases. You do your best. It's almost like being a defense attorney. Almost, not quite. It's almost like being a defense attorney, and you say to yourself, well, we'll take on all cases. Everybody has a right to legal representation. But as a PR firm, it's not legal representation under the law in that sense. You're just trying to change narratives, perceptions of who a person is or what happened or how it happened or what it should be moving forward. I get all of that. Tom wanted to steer clear from this. I was willing to take it on within the firm. A, I know it's going to pay well. But B, again, at that time, you had just a couple therapists saying that my man Justin Tucker, kicker extraordinaire, singer of the opera, that also married man, that perhaps he had just had a couple of moments where his judgment could be questioned. Had I learned my lesson from Deshaun Watson, I would have known, it's not going to stop, Jeff. We're just getting started. There are many more to come. You don't want to take this on because this is going to become an avalanche. This isn't going to be a one-off. This isn't going to be, Susan didn't like him. He wasn't a very good tipper. She saw the Deshaun Watson case, thought she could get paid a little money, accused him of something. He says he didn't do it. It's he said, she said. Don't know what to tell you. No, that's not what it's going to be. 7 more massage therapists have accused Baltimore Ravens kicker Justin Tucker of sexually inappropriate behavior, joining 9 others who have now come to the table. We are up to 16 accusers for Justin Tucker, who, of course, when the initial allegations raised by the Banner is the name of the newspaper, raised by the Banner's reporting, including accusations that he exposed himself, that he brushed himself against people, and etc. Yeah, he denied those. He said that categorically false is what he originally said, right? One of the women who came forward recently said that he had taken it too far. I'm going to just put it that way. That he made intense eye contact, making the women feel very uncomfortable before removing a sheet that was to remain over him. At the end of the day, it looks like, according to The Athletic and the most recent complaints, that once those initial complaints came out, a whole bunch of other women said, "You too? Well, I'll be damned. That SOB did the exact same thing to me." The odds staring into my eyes as I tried to massage his shoulder, the hinting that he wanted to massage elsewhere, the not so accidental removal of his sheet. This guy, this guy lacks subtlety, friends. 16 across 8 spas in Baltimore. Multiple luxury spas throughout Baltimore. The workers saying that the misbehavior, quote unquote, occurring over a 4-year stretch in particular before he was eventually banned from ever getting a massage at their luxury, massage parlor. Tucker's 35 years old, starting to sound an awful lot like you aren't going to see Justin Tucker kick in the NFL ever again. Hope you enjoyed the many made field goals over the years, but he's got a real problem on his hands. He once accused all of the reporters who have posted these stories regarding these accusations as being desperate to create tabloid fodder. It's nothing more. These are salacious allegations, and they're meant to sell newspapers, but they are unequivocally, I say, not true as to what happened in real life. I can explain it. Now, again, as I said, Justin's got real issues because you can only imagine now, I would think, that his wife will likely file for divorce. Just seems like a fair enough guess based on context clues. And while that's something that happens every day, also means an awful lot of money that's going to exchange hands. And then I got to imagine that there's going to be money that exchanges hands here once the civil suits are filed, because that's exactly how it went down in the Deshaun Watson case, where first it was, hey, you did this, I didn't like it. It was akin to sexual assault. And he said, no, I didn't do that. Next thing you know, we were up to 30 some odd people, and the allegations were getting more and more severe, and it was spiraling out of control. And in an effort to stem all of that, he was told by his attorneys, you should pay these people. You need to pay these women. We don't really want to bring this to court. Just pay them millions of dollars. You have millions of dollars. Let's do that. And I imagine Justin Tucker's attorneys are soon going to say to him, did you do anything like that? Chance they got any of that on tape? Yeah. Okay. Well, here's the thing, my man. We're going to pay them. Let's get to cracking on that settlement. Until tomorrow, be good. Thanks for watching and listening. Peace.